status of deployment projects in the Great Lamu County. Senator Mohamed Shute, who happens to be the senator for Marsabit County, will this afternoon, pursuant to Standing Orders number 53, subsection 1, be seeking a statement from the Committee on Matters Land, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the status of drought resilience program in the northern Kenya.
We have quorum now. You proceed to call out the first one.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honourable Senators. Honourable Senators, we have a visiting delegation from the County Assembly of Baringo, which is visiting the Senate. Honourable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon of a delegation from the County Assembly of Baringo. The delegation comprised of 20 clerk assistants serving in the Directorate of Legislative and Committee Services. The delegation is undertaking a training on lawmaking and procedural matters at the Center for Parliamentary Studies and Training, CPST. Honourable Senators, in our short tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to the delegation and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. For Nandi County, in less than 1 minute, welcome the visitors. Almost Mbonda Baringo from Nandi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. On behalf of the Senator of Baringo and on your own behalf, let me extend a warm welcome to the members of County Assembly for Baringo County Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I want to confirm, as the darling of members of County Assembly or MCAs across the country, I want to assure in your indulgence that their welfare to do the SRC Salaries and Remuneration Commission in reviewing their perks and salaries and welfare is well catered for. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, as the Vice Chairperson of Senate Public Accounts Committee, I want to assure that Chairman, to Mr. Speaker, sir, that we are reviewing the law to give financial autonomies to counties so that they can have their county revenue fund at the National Treasury, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank you because that amendment has been sponsored by you as truly, Senator Katuri Murungi. I want to ask the MCAs, please, when you do oversight, don't fear. Do oversight as per the law, as provided by the Constitution. We wish you well. We wish you good learning experience. The interest of the MCAs we will always protect from their welfare, their capacity and ability in developing a primary oversight. Baringo is a special county to me because my brother married from Baringo County, and we are proud. We wish you well, and may God bless you as you go back to Baringo. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
But when I read the communication and did not say that these are members of County Assembly from Baringo, I think there are 20 clerk assistants serving in the Directorate of Legislative and Committee Services. Therefore, let's make progress. Next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Okay. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority leader. As in delegated to you, Senator Chalagay, the papers.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate. Today, Wednesday, the 18th of September, 2024. This is a SRC end-of-term report for the financial years 2018 to 2024. Then the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2022 of the following: Dithini Level 4 Hospital in Machakos, Kangundo Level 4 Hospital in Machakos, Sultan Hamud Sub-County Level 4 Hospital in Makueni, Kulungu Sub-County Hospital in Makueni, Mboni Sub-County Level 4 in Makueni, Migosi Sub-County Hospital in Kisumu, Ober Kamoth Sub-County Level 4 Hospital in Kisumu, Nyaera Sub-County Level 4 Hospital in Kisumu, Mandera North Sub-County Level 4 Hospital in Mandera, Tabaka Sub-County Referral Hospital in Mandera. Then the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2023 for the following: Tabaka Sub-County Referral Hospital in Mandera, Mandera North Sub-County Level 4 Hospitals in Mandera, Migosi Sub-County in Kisumu, Sultan Hamud Level 4 Hospital in Makueni, Kilungu Sub-County Level 4 Hospital in Makueni, Mboni Sub-County Level 4 Hospital in Makueni, Migwani Level 4 Hospital in Kitui, Ikudha Level 4 Hospital in Kitui, Kanyangi Level 4 Hospital in Kitui, Masinga Level 4 Hospital in Machakos, Mwala Level 4 Hospital in Machakos, Kimiti Level 4 Hospital in Machakos, Dithini Level 4 Hospital in Machakos, Manga Sub-County Level Hospital in Nyamira, Masaba Sub-County Level 4 Hospital in Nyamira, Nyangena Sub-County Hospital in Nyamira, Miranga Sub-County Hospital in Kisumu, Nyangande Sub-County Level 4 Hospital in Kisumu, Sondu Sub-County Level 4 Hospital in Kisumu, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital in County Government of Kisumu, Nyaera Sub-County Level 4 Hospital in Kisumu. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Karungo Wadhangwa. Give Senator Karungo the mic. Clerk.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to give notice of the motion that calls for consolidation of bursary funds for equitable access to education in Kenya. Aware that pursuant to Article 53 of the Constitution, every child in Kenya is entitled to free and compulsory basic education. And the Basic Education Act provides that basic education should be guided by principles such as equitable access to all youth and equal access to education or institutions. Further aware that many students in secondary schools and higher education institutions come from financially disadvantaged backgrounds, making it difficult for them to afford school fees and access education opportunities. Noting that over the years, various interventions have been made, including the issuance of bursaries through the National Government Constituency Development Fund, NCGDF, National Government Affirmative Action Fund, GAF, the Ministry of Education, and county governments through various county bursary funds, concerned that despite these efforts, school fees remain unaffordable for many parents, and the allocation of bursaries has been plagued by nepotism, favoritism, and political manipulation, lack of transparency and accountability. Further concerned that public learning institutions are primarily funded by the government through the Ministry of Education, and in the financial year 2024-2025, approximately Kenya shillings 656 billion was allocated to the education sector, making it difficult to ascertain the specific funds granted to each student, and that the lack of transparency in the disbursement of bursaries from various agencies, making it difficult to determine the total amount allocated in a financial year, thus hindering efforts to ensure equitable access to education for financially disadvantaged students. Now, therefore, the Senate urges the Ministry of Education to, 1, audit the funds allocated to bursaries by both the national government and county governments. 2, consolidate the funds distributed by various government entities and agencies with the aim of directing these funds directly to schools as supplementary capitation to facilitate the achievement of free secondary education. And 3, calculate the cost of education per learner and make this information public for primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions, including a detailed breakdown of the annual financial requirements for each student across the country. Mr. Speaker, I give notice.
Very well. Next is Senator Karen Nyamu. Give notice of your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to give notice of the following motion. Aware that schools play a crucial role in shaping the future of our children and providing a safe environment for learning, conscious that personal growth is vital and that safety within schools is a fundamental right of every student, teacher, and other workers, and that safety is critical in improving the overall quality of education. Further aware that many schools, particularly in rural and marginalized areas, lack the necessary resources and expertise to manage the safety risks effectively, which exposes students and staff to potential harm, noting that deploying dedicated safety officers in schools will significantly reduce risks, enhance preparedness, and provide immediate response capabilities during emergencies, and that first aid, Mr. Speaker, please ask my colleagues to consult in low tones. They are louder than me. Senator Kinyua and Senator Gerald.
Proceed and don't address the members. I'm protecting you.
Mr. Speaker,
Senator Karen.
Mr. Speaker, noting that
You're all protected.
Mr. Speaker, noting that deploying dedicated safety officers in school will significantly reduce risks, enhance preparedness, and provide these trained safety officers will oversee safety protocols, provide first aid, conduct safety drills, ensure fire preparedness, manage emergency evacuation, and assist in addressing violence or other threats within school environment. Concerned that there have been increased incidents of insecurity, violence, accidents, and other safety challenges in both primary schools and secondary schools across the country. Now, therefore, the Senate urges the national government through the Ministry of Education to, 1, recruit and areas to effectively deploy and utilize these safety officers. Mr. Speaker, I give notice.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
We have several statements and standing order 53-1. We start with Senator Mohamed Chute.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm requesting for a statement on the status of KFW-funded drought resilient program in northern Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the status of KFW Development Bank funded drought resilient program in northern Kenya. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a list of counties where KFW funded drought resilient program in northern Kenya has been implemented, stating the commencement date, planned implementation period, and the number of project clusters in each county. Number 2, disclose the total amount of money allocated for the full implementation of the program, specifying whether these funds by German-based KFW Development Bank have been given to the government as a grant or as a loan. Number 3, Honorable Speaker, provide details of budgets for the first, second, and third annual investment plan, which is AIP1, AIP2, and AIP3, indicating the respective contribution of the national and the county governments. Number 4, provide details of all projects under DRPNK, including the respective cost of each project, whether the project have been initiated, completed, or tendered, but not yet commenced, and clarifying whether public participation has been conducted for each project. Finally, number 5, Honorable Speaker, state the duration of cost of the contract for consultancy services awarded to GOPA, G-O-P-A, Worldwide Consultants, indicating total amount paid to the company so far. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next is Senator Joyce Korir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise pursuant to the Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the incorporation of teachers with diploma qualification to the Teacher Service Commission. In the statement, the committee should explain why the teachers who are currently holding an upgrade diploma in primary teacher education are yet to be employed by the TSC, the Teacher Service Commission, that is TSC, despite their training in pedagogies and CPC learning areas and their ability to teach CPC grades and junior secondary school, that is the JSS levels. Secondly, detail the measures that the TSC has established to prioritize teachers with an upgrade diploma in primary teacher education, UDPTE, during the recruitment process. And finally, Honorable Speaker, outline the actions taken by the Ministry of Education and the TSC to ensure that employed UDPTE teachers are placed in job group C1. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Good. Next is Senator Gloria Roba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding the status and implementation of the Linda Mama Healthcare Program. In the statement, the committee should state the current status of the operationalization.
Senator Gloria, your statement is on is to the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare.
I have two statements.
And of employees.
I have two statements on 53-1.
On this,
There are two on the
on the
paper.
paper.
Okay, I'll start with the one to labor.
Proceed. Okay, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding the status and implementation of the Linda Mama Healthcare Program. In the statement, the committee should state the current status of the operationalization of Linda Mama Program nationwide. 2, give details of the benefits package available to expectant mothers as myself, including antenatal delivery and postnatal services, as well as critical care of newborns. 3, provide a list of hospitals empaneled by NHIF to provide services under the Linda Mama program, including the criteria used for their qualification. And 4, identify the challenges faced by NHIF in fully implementing the program and outlining the government measures to address these issues. Mr. Speaker, I have a second statement on 53-1.
Senator Roba, why are you wanting issues that are not on your statement? Because I'm looking at the statement and I cannot see where you have indicated like yourself.
Sorry?
Your statement has no phrase like yourself. You know, you have said.
Oh, about the expectant mothers?
Yeah, now that bit is not on your statement.
Okay, I stand guided. However, Mr. Speaker, I am expectant. Mr. Speaker, can I go ahead and read 50 on my second statement? Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the safety and welfare of employees of Moja Expressway Company stationed on the Nairobi Expressway. In the statement, the committee should clarify whether the Moja Expressway Company provides pick-up and drop-off services for its employees stationed on the Nairobi Expressway, considering that their workstations are not accessible by public transportation. 2, state the alternative means used by the employees to access the workstations. 3, outline the steps taken by the company to ensure its employees have access to safe and convenient means of transport to and from work. And finally, explain other measures put in place by the company to address the safety concerns associated with its employees climbing over the Nairobi Expressway barricades to access their workstations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Edwin Sifuna.
Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the alleged kidnap of a Kenyan truck driver, Ms. Florence Wanza Munyao, in the Democratic Republic of Congo on the 27th of August, 2024. In the statement, the committee should address the following. Number 1, explain the circumstances surrounding the disappearance of Ms. Munyao. Number 2, state her current whereabouts. And number 3, outline the actions taken by Kenyan authorities to secure her release and enable her to be reunited with her family from Machakos County. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Next is Senator Chalgei Samson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Request for statement on audits by the Public Service Commission of Human Resource and Payroll Systems in Government. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the audits by the Public Service Commission of Human Resource and Payroll Systems in Government. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state the legal provisions that gives the Public Service Commission authority to audit human resource and payroll practices, procedures, and records of county governments. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, provide a list of all county governments that have requested the Public Service Commission to audit their human resource and payroll practices, procedures, and all in respective county assemblies, and explain why they have not been tabled in Senate. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, provide a schedule of the respective costs of each audit, indicating the entity that bore the cost. Number 5, Mr. Speaker, payroll practices, state corporations, parastatals, universities, and other tertiary institutions outlining actions taken against individuals found culpable of illegalities, malpractices, or negligence. And finally, Mr. Speaker, outline the measures put in place to enhance transparency in the recruitment processes undertaken by Public Service Commission, which are currently shrouded in secrecy. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Just a minute, I'll listen to you. Just a minute. Honorable Senators, we have visiting teachers and students from Olptio Boys Secondary School in Bomet County. Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, visiting teachers and students from Olptio Boys Secondary School in Bomet County. The delegation comprises 4 teachers and 64 students who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. Honorable Senators, in addition to the tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful time for running. I thank you. The Senator from Bomet County is not allowed.
I don't mind welcoming the students from Olbutio. If I got the name correct, I can see them nodding. I know where Olbutio is. Senator Sige was in the House earlier, so it must be somewhere within the precincts of Parliament. On his behalf, Mr. Speaker, I'd wish to welcome the visiting students together with their teachers. I hope they get to enjoy their tour of Parliament, enjoy debate, see us in action. Perhaps it's different from what they watch on TV. Realize that people can be orderly in this house from his nostrils, or Senator seated calm like he is this afternoon. So this is how typically Parliament looks on a calm afternoon. Though I cannot assure what will happen for the rest of the afternoon, because things boil up very quickly. But I wish the students well as they pursue their studies. May they achieve all that they have set out to do. Most welcome to the Parliament of Kenya.
Senator Joyce Korir, maybe under 1 minute, you can also welcome them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. The Senator was just around. And on behalf of my Senator and this House, allow me to also welcome the students from Olbutio Secondary School. This is one of the secondary schools that is performing within the county. And I want to say that, Honorable Speaker, that the opportunity that they have gotten to be here is an opportunity that they will get to see what is really happening, because they always say seeing is believing, Honorable Speaker. So I want to believe that they are going to learn a lot, because this is a house of procedures and there are a lot of debates that are taking place. I know the Senate is just a replica of the Bomet Assembly, and a number of things that are being taken there are the same things that are happening here. It's only that the responsibilities or the roles of this house are different. Otherwise, I want to say that they are welcome and they will learn a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Next statement from Senator Professor Tom Ojeda, Senior Counsel. You have 4 statements. How many do you want to read today?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I will read all the statements. They are short statements.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, Kisumu County is a county of excellence, and we lead in the broad-based system. Mr. Speaker, I have 4 statements. The first statement is on the state of education in Kenya. I rise under Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the state of education in Kenya. In the statement, the committee should, Mr. Speaker, state the factors that have contributed to the ever-recurring strike by teachers, explain how the recent teacher strike witnessed in August and September 2024 has impacted learners and the school calendar, though I can see the teachers are here. 3, outline steps taken by the government to permanently address grievances by teachers and ensure that similar grievances do not lead to industrial action in the future. Provide details of the current terms of employment, salaries and benefits for teachers serving in public schools at various cadres, explaining how these terms, salaries and benefits compare with those of teachers serving in private schools. And lastly, explain measures put in place by the government to ensure Kenya achieves and sustains the recommended teacher-student ratio in public and private primary, junior secondary, and secondary schools, disclosing any plans by the government to recruit additional teachers. Mr. Speaker, my second statement is on the safety of pupils and students in schools across the country. And this is necessitated, Mr. Speaker, by the strikes that we have seen in schools. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the safety of pupils and students in schools around the country. Mr. Speaker, I wish to convey my heartfelt condolences to the families who have tragically lost their children due to the recent fire outbreaks in various schools, and wish a speedy recovery to the children who are injured during these incidences. In the statement, the committee should, 1, explain the root causes of student unrest and the increasing number of fires in schools that have been reported across the country. 2, outline the policy of the Ministry of Education on the safety of pupils and students in schools and disclose any measures to enhance the safety of those in boarding schools. 3, explain any existing emergency protocols for handling fire outbreaks and other disasters in schools, and state steps to enact a harmonized disaster preparedness and emergency policy, including mandatory emergency drills in all schools. 4, state measures in place to ensure accountability and compensation to families of victims injured or succumbing to school fires and other disasters. 5, outline any measures to protect pupils and students in boarding schools from the threat of human trafficking. And lastly, disclose the budgetary allocation set aside to mitigate safety of pupils and students against fires and other disasters in public schools from financial years 2020 to date. Mr. Speaker, my third statement is on the state of maintenance and repair of medical equipment, including vaccine refrigerators in health centers and hospitals in Kisumu County. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding the state of maintenance and repair of medical equipment, including vaccine refrigerators in health centers and hospitals in Kisumu County. In the statement, the committee should provide details on the current supply and availability of drugs, including vaccines in health centers and hospitals in Kisumu County, and outline the measures being implemented to address the existing shortage of drugs and vaccines. 2, inform the Senate on the conditions of maintenance and repair of all medical equipment in health facilities, particularly vaccine refrigerators, and associated budgetary implications, stating the frequency of servicing and repairs. 3, disclose the budget allocated in the financial year 2024-2025 from both the county and national government for maintaining a consistent supply of drugs and vaccines. And lastly, state the budgetary allocation for the years 2024-25 from both Kisumu County and national government for the repairs and maintenance of medical equipment and refrigerators. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to seek a statement under Order 53-1 from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations regarding the operationalization of municipalities of Maseno Holo, Kombewa Body, Ahero Awasi, Muoroni Chemelil, and Kantito Paponditi. Article 186(1) of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, read together with Section 9(1) and 9(3) of the Urban Areas and Cities Act 2011, allows the county governor, upon the resolution of the county assembly, to confer status of municipality on a town that meets the set out thresholds. The conferment of municipal status to 5 towns above mentioned calls for good planning and execution to ensure effective governance, accelerated development, and improve livelihoods for the residents. In the statement, the committee should, my Lord, Mr. Speaker, explain the status of compliance by the county government of Kisumu with the provisions of essential services in municipalities enumerated in the first schedule to the Urban Areas and Cities Act 2011. 2, state whether all functions outlined in Schedule 4, Part 2 of the Constitution, including the attendant, staff, budget, and assets, have been transferred from the respective county government departments to the municipalities as per the Gazette Notice of 13th October 2023 issued by the Governor Professor Peter Nyang'nyong. Third, explain whether the new municipalities have established physical offices, and if so, where these offices are located for each of the 5 municipalities, and whether these municipalities have operational bank accounts for financial transactions management and day-to-day running of operations, and provide details of the bank accounts and any funds allocated to the municipalities for their establishment. 4, state whether the staff have been deployed in these municipalities, and if so, provide details on the number, remuneration, and the roles of the deployed staff. 5, explain whether these municipalities have established management boards and outline the number of meetings that have been held by the boards since the establishment, providing any resolutions for such meetings, and whether allowances have been paid to board members for the meetings held as prescribed. Lastly, outline the general terms of remuneration of the board members and elaborate whether such terms are similar to those of other boards within the county government, and whether these terms meet the standards set out by the SRC guidelines. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Next is Senator for Taita Taveta County, John Zumaruma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to request for a statement on the ongoing strike by medical personnel in Taita Taveta County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding the ongoing strike by medical personnel in Taita Taveta County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, appraise the Senate on the reasons presented by the striking workers that necessitated the industrial action. 2, update the Senate on any measures taken by the county government of Taita Taveta to address the issues raised by the striking workers before commencement of their industrial action. 3, inform the Senate of the steps the county government is taking to resolve the strike. And finally, provide an account of the number of casualties in the 4 sub-counties resulting from this industrial action, which could have been avoided had the strike not occurred. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good. The next is a statement by Senator Foram, Senator Joseph Kiduku. He is not present. That statement is dropped. The other one is the statement from the Senator for Kisii County, Senator Richard Onyonka. Also, the statement is dropped. Is your point of order, Senator Munyihaji Mohammed?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise on a point of order to seek your guidance on an issue that is affecting the House generally. And this is with regard to our committee work. Most of the committees, Honorable Speaker, are experiencing a lot of quorum issues. Members appear to be a bit disenchanted, and therefore it is very difficult for the chairs of those committees to be able to prosecute the matters that are before those committees. Mr. Speaker, so far we have not been able to know from our committee chairs what are the budgets of our respective committees. We have already done a quarter of the financial year, July, August, September, and so far there has been no movement at all. There are reports that are waiting to be concluded. There are public participation activities that needs to be done, and all this will require members to volunteer and attend those meetings, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I wanted to propose, Mr. Speaker, that we hold a kamkunji so that these issues can be discussed in plenary by all the members, and members also and the chairs of those committees. I know you chair the liaison committee, but maybe liaison may not be pushing strong enough so that the interests of those chairs that you preside over can be taken care of. The second issue, Honorable Speaker, is the fact that we have information that the Senate had pending bills of about 450 million in the last financial year. We need to know as a Senate, because you know, the Senate, in my 7 years in this House, I know there's a budget that comes from the Parliamentary Service Commission to the Senate. Now that budget, when it comes to it arrives at the Senate, who now budgets that money? And who amongst the members here makes a decision on how that money is supposed to be used? Because I know we as members are accountable to our people.
So what clarification are you seeking from the chair?
The clarification I'm seeking, Chair, is that we need to have a kamkunji as soon as possible. In fact, this kamkunji should have been done before we opened the House yesterday, so that members can be briefed on what is happening, so that committees can be vibrant again. Most of the committees that are taking issues, they are taking issues out of public limelight so that they can get that mileage or in the press. But in reality, most of the committees are struggling in terms of budget, in terms of quorum. And this cannot, because most of our business is transacted through committees. And if the committees are not meeting, then it means we'll only be coming here to...
Your point is made, Senator Mohamed. In fact, I've heard you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
And I'll give guidance on that particular matter.
Thank you.
On Kamkunji as a receipt and all these interests. Now I'm not able to differentiate on what issues the members want to contribute here. I want to give just to... I'll give you 1 minute each, 2 from this side and 2 from this other side on the issue raised by Senator Mohamed. And then we are going to give a few, maybe 20 or so minutes for the statements. Senator Gloria.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm glad that Senator Faki has brought this issue up. Speaker, like every other institution, the Senate actually runs on a budget. And Mr. Speaker, we have been reminded severally by Gen Z that we need to live within our means and we must practice austerity measures. However, Mr. Speaker, the Senate, and particularly the senators, do not have any oversight of the budget that we have as a Senate, Mr. Speaker. In the National Assembly, they have a Budget and Appropriation Committee that actually is able to give foresight and control on the expenditure. But in the Senate, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of gray areas, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, we had Senator Sifuna sweating because the air conditioning system here has a problem. This morning, Mr. Speaker, we could barely hear the Minister for Roads because our sound system here doesn't work. However, Mr. Speaker, for some very weird reason, we are prioritizing the purchases of red carpets, hanging lights, and all sorts of other things, Mr. Speaker. As we speak, I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, we really do not have oversight of even on basic things such as travel, Mr. Speaker. And we just are asking, as a House of Oversight, Mr. Speaker, if we can be allowed to see the money that has been appropriated to Senate and how we can be able to use that money with the austerity measures, Mr. Speaker. And finally, just to conclude, Mr. Speaker, because I am not a chair.
You have been at Senator Moses Kajwan. Senator Kajwan.
Mr. Speaker, together with Senator Cheriot, we have been in this Senate from the 11th Parliament. And this Senate has changed. We are no longer able to execute our functions in committees. We are no longer able to even do parliamentary diplomacy, which is a critical aspect of any parliament. Mr. Speaker, the problem is not just the allocations at the committee level. The problem is a global allocation to the Senate. The problem is a global allocation to Parliament as an institution. And Mr. Speaker, we've allowed people to ride roughshod over us, contrary to Article 2493, which requires this Parliament to allocate adequate funds to enable each commission and independent office to perform its functions. We are allowing the National Treasury to set a budget for us. Mr. Speaker, that is where the problem starts. And Mr. Speaker, I belong to the Liaison Committee, which you so ably chair. I believe this matter now needs to be brought to members, because members don't understand.
Senator Chalege.
Mr. Speaker, one, I want to raise that these issues have been saying it in secrecy, but now it's open. I want to thank Senator Faki. Mr. Speaker, it's very unfortunate that we have a pending bill of 450 Kenya shillings, million. Who spent that money? I'm not aware. Mr. Speaker, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Mr. Speaker, number two, how can you slash that every committee gets 7 million? What will you do with 7 million? We cannot even reach Dandora Stadium to do audit of even toy market, Mr. Speaker, to investigate, let alone going to Kericho or Nandi or Marsabit, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is an affront to the institution of Parliament, more so to the Senate, Mr. Speaker. And I'm requesting that we need to adjourn indefinitely and discuss, or Mr. Speaker, I'm proposing, let us only do plenary sittings and do away with committee and parliamentary diplomacy until this matter is heard and determined, Mr. Speaker, through the committee, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even finally, give us a date.
Now, I want to give guidance on that matter. I will request the leadership of I want to give guidance, majority leader, since you will be able to mediate this matter and the minority leadership and the majority leadership. You preserve your comment so that you not be yeah, so I request that both Onda Senator Chalege, Onda, majority leader, I want to give you guidance now. And I don't know this bromance between you and Senator Gloria this afternoon is a bit worrying. So both the leadership of the majority, leadership of the minority to sit down even this afternoon or tomorrow and agree on appropriate date for the Kamkunji. All parliaments actually are run through Kamkunjis because that is where we do housekeeping. And before things go out of hand, Kamkunjis are very, very necessary in any democracy. So let's now get 20 minutes for comments, brief comments on the statements. And the senators, make sure you don't give comments on your statement. Senator Sifuna.
Honorable Chair, allow me to begin by commenting on the statement by Senator Gloria and take this opportunity to congratulate her. I think this is the first time in parliamentary history that a pregnancy announcement has been woven into a parliamentary question. And Chair, she did well to disclose because the question was on Linda Mama. And if she had not told us that, we would have accused her of conflict of interest because she's soon going to be a beneficiary of Linda Mama. So, Honorable Speaker, I would like that when the committee takes charge of this matter, they should also appraise us
on whether there are any pending bills or amounts that are owed by this program, under this program, to any of our county hospitals, because I remember last time the CS for Health was here, she had assured us that all those pending bills will be cleared soon. So the committee should take charge of that. Number two, Honorable Chair, it is quite disturbing, and you can see the Senator of Kisumu has brought 2 questions on the state of education in the country, and if specifically even regarding the safety of pupils and students across the country. Of course, we continue to condole with our brothers and sisters who lost their young children at the Hillside and Russia School in Nyeri. And Honorable Chair, any one of us, whether you are a parent or not, or a parent to be like Senator Gloria, all of us are concerned about the safety of the students, and we would want that matter to be resolved. Honorable Speaker, you will also be aware that just this afternoon, the students in the universities have issued a 2 weeks strike notice again over the university funding model. Of course, I have very serious reservations about the announcement I saw yesterday or the day before that we are putting together a committee of almost 200 people to deal with a problem that we caused ourselves. I have asked myself severally, what was the problem with the funding model that we went through when I was in the university, Honorable Chair? It was very easy for the chiefs, for the religious leaders, and our close family associates to communicate with the Higher Education Loans Board and tell them the state of our financial, our finances. So, Honorable Speaker, I feel that these are very important statements, and the committee should endeavor to ensure that they come up with proper answers for us to deal with these issues once and for all. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Sifuna. Kindly, if you are making comments, just 2 minutes are enough for a brief comment. Senator Omar Sheikh Maliam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I also wanted to comment on the education, on the statement raised by Senator Kisumu. Mr. Speaker, where I am seated, Mr. Speaker, education system in Kenya is discriminative. I raised a statement concerning hijab in some public schools, in secondary schools, and still, up to now, they are not allowing Muslims ladies in school. That is Alliance Girls and Kenya High. Mr. Speaker, that statement is up to, I interrogated with the Ministry of Education, and the reason they give us is just, it's not an answer specifically. And on that, these both schools is public schools and is funded by taxpayers. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to also security, safety measures in school, first priorities in a institution, in a society, we must take care of our kids. Last night when I saw in the news, there is a septic tank which has not been in school. The kids dropped in and lost her life. Mr. Speaker, we need the Ministry of Education to take charge and inspect each schools, private schools and public schools, so that if it is not conducive for our kids, it must be closed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kavidu Agnes, are you commenting on the statements?
I'll call you back.
You said you'll call me back?
Not you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'm commenting on this statement by Sifuna. Senator Sifuna, Nairobi, about Miss Florence Wanza Munyao, who has disappeared in Congo. She went as a driver. I understand the lorry is back here in Kenya, but the person is not here. And nobody seems to be knowing where she is. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm wondering if the lorry is more important than a human being. Mr. Speaker, I would request the committee who the statement will be put to make sure that they do this one very fast. And Mr. Speaker, that's why we are saying that we need the Kamukunji very fast, because the committees has to continue with their job. At the committee level is where we senators do most of the work at the Senate. So without the committees working and functioning properly, the work of the Senate will be stuck. Mr. Speaker, I request and I beg the Committee of Security to take this matter very seriously, because the parents of Florence are having sleepless nights because they don't know where their daughter is. The other statement by the Senator of Kisumu about the fires in the schools. Mr. Speaker, when parents take their children to school, they take their children to school well and knowing that their children are safe and secure at school. But when these fires are there and children die, and even some disappear without being known where they've disappeared to, Mr. Speaker, it's very, very depressing for the parents to take a child to school and get back a dead person to come and bury. Mr. Speaker, this will worry a lot of parents, and maybe some of them will be even afraid of taking their children to school, because they'll be fearing that they might not come back. This is very devastating, and I ask the committee to take very hasty measures to make sure that they take the government to task, because even students must be given security. Even if it means policemen being employed and deployed to schools for the security of these children, it's important, because they are helpless, they cannot protect themselves. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next is Youth Leader, Senator Buru Oginga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to comment on the statement sought by Senator Chute regarding the northern region of our country. Mr. Speaker, sir, the marginalization of these areas started right from independence. And at independence, Mr. Speaker, there was a sessional paper of 1965, which clearly stated that investments in development of our country will be based on returns, the highest return per shilling. And Mr. Speaker, sir, this was intended to develop only high potential areas of our country, those which were agriculturally viable, and marginalize the northeastern, which was looking as if it was not viable. But the soil there, Mr. Speaker, sir, is very fertile. Mr. Speaker, there are rivers passing through there. Mr. Speaker, sir, there are potential in the mineral resources underneath. And Mr. Speaker, the area has so much of the animal stocks, the animals, which can be taken. So we should establish proper slaughterhouses so that we can export meat. If you go to a country like Botswana, it is a dry country, but they are very rich because they are exporting their meat to Middle Eastern countries. Mr. Speaker, therefore, it is important that the committee investigates this properly and we must find ways and means of empowering the people of North. There was no investment at all, Mr. Speaker, until just a few years ago, when all these organizations called Drought Watch are being established, ASOL and so on, ministries. These ones are now just a drop, a small drop in the ocean, because they were ignored for many years. There were no roads, there were no dams, there was no electricity. Up to now, big cities are still using generators to get power. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we should increase efforts to make sure that we also benefit from this very rich region, which has a lot of resources, both underneath and very rich soils. We need to establish dams and good roads and electricity so that these people, the resources there can be exploited, and we need not have poverty there. So I support the statement sought by Honorable Chute. Let the committee investigate properly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I'm wondering, I'm not able to tell exactly. The senators left on my screen are the ones who were agitating for Kamukunji. Are you still on Kamukunji business, or you want to make comments? Okay, Senator Oroba.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to add my voice on Senator Tomojenda's statement about the safety of pupils and students in schools across the country. Mr. Speaker, you know we've been experiencing a lot of unrest. We have seen from Dagoretti to all these schools, including fires, Mr. Speaker. And for me, I think that it is time that we stop addressing the issue in one way. Mr. Speaker, I think we need to actually look at what is causing this unrest, Mr. Speaker. And above and beyond that, Mr. Speaker, I went to my former school, St. George's, to check on the fire safety measures, Mr. Speaker. And I realized that a lot of schools take for granted the policy that was given some years back of removing the grills from the windows and ensuring that the dormitories are left open, Mr. Speaker. In all the fire cases where we have lost students, we have seen that the dormitories were locked and the dormitories also had grills, Mr. Speaker. So I urge the Ministry of Education to actually have a team to go and assess and provide a checklist to all the schools so that it is not about a 67-page policy that's there, Mr. Speaker. Most of the people implementing are not going to read 67 pages. If it can just be reduced to 2 A4s of a checklist of what should be there and what should not be there, I think we'll be making some headway. And Mr. Speaker, there has been a conversation about abolishing boarding schools, Mr. Speaker. That is not the way to go. There are so many reasons why parents choose to take their children to boarding schools. So just because we have a problem or a calamity in one boarding school or two, then you cannot start saying that the boarding schools must be shut down, Mr. Speaker. We have seen accidents happening in day schools, and we don't call for the day schools to be shut down, Mr. Speaker. So I call upon the Ministry of Education, and led by the Minister Julius Migosi, to ensure that there is a checklist provided, because we are lacking a checklist from the Ministry of Education to make sure that our facilities, the dormitories particularly, are safe, and not only from fires, but also from intruders and all sorts of other risks that are there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Kajwang Moses.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to comment on the statements on the state of education and the state of healthcare in the country. Mr. Speaker, when we resumed our sittings yesterday, we came back. During the recess, we lost 21 children at the age of 12 to an unfortunate fire at Endarasha Hillside Academy. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Homa Bay delegation, I wish to convey the condolences of the people of Homa Bay. A house with a conscience ought to have resumed its sittings with a minute's silence. Mr. Speaker, I'm a parent of a child in that demographic. My son turned 12 years old. And I would really tremble to think that I would send my son to school, to a boarding school, to pick up skills and to relate with other children, only for him to come back in a body bag. Mr. Speaker, if you read the story of Endarasha, it is a horror story. This is one of those things that if our committees were properly resourced, the first business would have been for the relevant committee, be it education or security, to go to Endarasha, to go there and establish the facts. We cannot trust the government to tell the story. We cannot trust the executive to tell the story. And that is why Parliament exists, such that if there is something that has happened in this nation, and Kenyans are very skeptical of the account that the National Executive provides, Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage the relevant committee. If all of us cannot go to Endarasha, we must go there. We must establish the facts. We must assure the parents that it is safe to reopen the school. Mr. Speaker, a school where 21 children have been roasted to death, you can imagine the kind of trauma that will visit the other children if they are forced to go back to that school. And why would parents be forced to send their children back to that school? Because they are paid fees for the entire year, and they don't have an option to transfer their children. Mr. Speaker, we need to be empathetic, and Endarasha Hillside Academy summarizes the state of education in this country, that it doesn't matter, children can die as long as you don't touch the mountain. It doesn't matter, children can die as long as you don't destabilize the politics. A country that does not put children at the center of its policy and its politics is a country that is dead. Mr. Speaker, this morning, the CS for Labor brought here a redacted summary of Kenyans who have acquired jobs in the recent job-seeking spree that the president has been on. Out of that entire schedule, Mr. Speaker, 60% had secured jobs as housemates. Housemates. We are exporting housemates. We are manufacturing housemates. Mr. Speaker, what kind of education system is that? South Africa, the education system has produced and exported Elon Musk. He's now the richest man in the world. The Indian education system has produced and exported executives of tech companies globally. Kenya has produced and exported housemaids to Saudi Arabia and Qatar. It is a big shame. That is the state of education in this country. Mr. Speaker, I believe that if there is a crisis that we need to deal with today, it is the education crisis that is manifested in strikes at all levels, from primary to secondary to universities. A university funding model that does not make sense, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude on the issue of the state of healthcare, as raised by Senator Mwaruma. Senator Mwaruma, some of these strikes by our doctors, they relate to delays in exchequer releases. But sometimes the county governments deduct money from staff and they do not remit. Mr. Speaker, if you allow me just 1 minute to inform Senator Sifuna, who was very hard on CS Mbadi earlier in the morning. It is unfortunate I was not here to provide that information at that point. Mr. Speaker, CS Mbadi, after meeting the president, had an appointment with his tailor. Yesterday, there was a national outcry about the state of his suits and that he had cut his suits, the cloth too big for his size. And Mr. Speaker, if you all observe, CS Mbadi looks emaciated, he looks stressed, he looks fatigued. Mr. Speaker, we should all pray for CS Mbadi so that his suits can fit him again. We donated him when he was in good health. We donated him when his suits could fit him. In only 2 weeks, Mr. Speaker, CS Mbadi, yes, the suits cannot fit because of the state of the economy.
Senator Gloria, what is your
Please give us back our Mbadi.
Mr. Speaker, I am an amateur at this house. My point of order is on 101. And I have been learning through these senators on how to conduct myself in this house, a house of procedure, a house of rules, a house of mature people, Mr. Speaker. It is very saddening. 101, kindly refer to your standing order 101.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, let me...
Execute your point of
yes,
order.
Mr.
Don't
Speaker, it is
your
very
point.
sad when some of us, young people, come here and we observe these other senators breaking the rules, acting misleading, acting very immature, Mr. Speaker, to come to the point of coming to discuss a cabinet secretary's dress code, a man discussing the dress code of another man in chambers, Mr. Speaker. It is shocking, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I want to also say, just allow me to conclude by saying, I wish had Senator Tom Ojen, as had Senator Kajwang, if he stood up to tell us that now, after his very extensive point of who we are exporting, Mr. Speaker, and by the way, housemaids are not, kazi ni kazi, Mr. Speaker. All jobs are dignified. I wish that this senator stood and said that the cabinet secretary was busy working and creating more jobs of engineers also, but he has come to discuss the dress code of another man, Mr. Speaker. We need to, first of all, investigate the intention and the interest of Senator Kajwang to discuss and looking at other men and discussing their dress code, Mr. Speaker.
That's good enough.
Mr. Speaker, it is very strange. As a woman, it is very strange that I come here. He should apologize. As women, we are not complaining. As women who are looking at this cabinet secretary and his dress code, we are not complaining. What is Senator Kajwang looking for in the dress code of our cabinet secretary, Mr. Speaker? He must withdraw and apologize. Withdraw, and that is a dignified cabinet.
You know, when the chair talks to you, Senator Gloria, you should just listen and pause. And you did the cracks in front of me. When I call, a chair calls a member, you should just switch off the mic so that they can listen to the message that I want to convey. Next is Senator Chalege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to comment on two issues. One,
in 2 minutes.
Okay,
2 minutes,
just on two statements. I'm not going outside what is happening. Don't worry. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of state of education, I think I want to appeal to university students. While they're expressing reservations on the university funding model, Mr. Speaker, I think it is important that the technical committee has been appointed. I want to appeal to students from universities to present and propose the university funding model for review, Mr. Speaker. I think as a way out and solution, we should revert to initial funding model of university where all of us were able to access higher education's loan board across the country. Mr. Speaker, I condemn with the strongest terms possible the bludgeoning, the attack against students of Multimedia University yesterday by the police officers, Mr. Speaker. It was so embarrassing, where we live in the country of rule of law. But I have law opinion because the acting Inspector General of Police, Bwana Masengeli, is a fugitive of justice. And that shows bad on the police. Mr. Speaker, I have been a victim of police brutality and harassment. I will not allow any other Kenyan to go through what I have undergone, Mr. Speaker. I was arrested naked on 14 April 2022 in my bed. Mr. Speaker, if I was at a certain age, Mr. Speaker, if I was at certain age, I would have cursed those police officers, Mr. Speaker. If I was beyond 80 in my culture, Mr. Speaker, when you see a person who's 80 years and above, I would have cursed, and Senator Lemonen would have understood, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of safety in schools, I want to pass my condolences, Mr. Speaker, to the Russia community, Mr. Speaker.
The three gracious ladies are just yelling because you are arrested naked. I don't know what they saw missing.
Mr. Speaker, would they want to see me naked? Can I table, they can see me in camera so that I can.
Give him 30 seconds to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, you know, Mr. Speaker, the gracious lady might have seen more machines than that they want to see mine. You know, some of our Kalenjin propellers are dangerous. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I want to pass my condolences.
Senator Chalege, what are you referring at?
No, they understood. If you see the excitement of Senator Karen, he understands what a Kalenjin propeller is, Mr. Speaker. So, on the issue of the Russia Academy, Mr. Speaker, I want to pass my condolences to the family, friends, and the community of Nyeri, Murima, Mr. Speaker, for the loss of 21 students. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education should give us a proper guidelines on how school safety should be handled. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Including the statement hour, maybe I want to give Senator Koiti Andrew and one more member from this side, then we conclude that.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for the opportunity to address this House. I'll contribute to the statement on our schools. The missing link or the elephant in the room is the way in which school inspectorate or the school inspectors have been sidelined. They have no budgets, they are not operational. So even if we pass these beautiful laws and regulations, there's nobody to enforce them. So we need the education sector to go back to a system whereby they had a robust department of school inspectors who could go around the schools like Senator Gloria did when she went to her former school and found that the grills were not well fixed, so that they can. You didn't clarify that. You just said you went to your school and I don't know what. So we need the school inspectors to come back and begin enforcing these regulations that are passed and laws that are passed by this House to ensure the safety of our children. Also, apart from the school inspectors, we need to look at these private schools, and the public, the taxpayer must go back to funding and providing proper public education so that these private schools are not crowded. The idea that the government only collects taxes and provides no goods and services is anathema to the Republican nature of this state. Thank you.
This, but not the last, Senator Mutinda.
The mic, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And I want to start by sincerely giving my very heartfelt, sincere condolences to the family and of the parents of Edarasha Primary School in Nyeri. But, Mr. Speaker, we have a tendency whereby we bring matters before this House. And what we do not address is the timeline for when these issues should be given feedbacks. It is a high time that the Committee of Education, that I believe will handle this matter, to fasten and speed up, because we await and then you find that other issues are still cropping up. It is a high time also the County Director of Education for Nyeri, where this school is, should by now have given also his statement or a report as to what really transpired. I want to thank our President, Dr. William, whom we saw the other day when he was in the County of Nyeri, actually just this last weekend. And he committed to ensuring that he's going to support the school coming back to its status. But as far as my colleague Senator Mtata has mentioned, the inspectorate team should be able to give a report. It's one thing when funds are there, but what are the kind of standards that need to be adhered so that our kids are safe? We entrust our kids actually in these institutions by the heads of these particular learning institutions. Learning institutions at some point in this country have become a commercial business, not adhering to the required standards of the Ministry of Education. The other day we were even concerned in Nairobi in the size of Githurai, where we have a primary school, one classroom with over 80 students, yet the regulations are very clear that the maximum number should be up to 45. Kids are squeezed in there. Yet the ministry is there, the people are being paid each and every month to ensure that they partake their roles, even if funds are not in place, but the person in charge should be able to ensure that in whatever time before the school.
Okay, that is that. So next order, clerk.
Order number 8, the County Government's Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 39 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an Act of Parliament to amend the County Government's Act to provide for inter-county transfers of county public officers, the establishment of the County Public Service Board's Consultative Forum, and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 9, the Labor Migration and Management number 2 bill, Senate Bills number 42 of 2024. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the regulation of private employment agencies and the recruitment of workers within and outside Kenya, safeguard the rights and welfare of job seekers and migrant workers, and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 10, motion, alteration of the Senate calendar for part 4 of the third session.
Senate Majority Leader, move the motion.
Mike, please. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move the motion on the alteration of the Senate calendar for part 4 of the third session, that notwithstanding the resolutions of the Senate made on the 15th of February 2024 on the approval of Senate calendar and 19th of August 2024, the alteration of the Senate calendar, pursuant to Standing Order number 32-4, the Senate resolves to further alter its calendar, regular sessions for the third session 2024 in respect to part 4 to 1, continue with regular sittings until Thursday, the 31st of October 2024. 2, proceed for recess from 1st of November 2024. 3, resume regular sittings on Tuesday, 12th November 2024. Mr. Speaker, this is a decision that we reached at the SPC, alive to the fact of the next motion, actually, which we shall be speaking about in a few minutes, Mr. Speaker, of the Senate Mashinani program, which, as you are aware, Mr. Speaker, is scheduled to take next week in Busia. But because of other exigencies of work, Mr. Speaker, and considerations that need to be made, we've had to reschedule it actually to the month of November. And Mr. Speaker, that being the case, then it means we have to redo our calendar as has been proposed this afternoon, Mr. Speaker. This is a fairly straightforward matter, but there are two things that I'd wish to speak to. I didn't get a chance, Mr. Speaker, to speak when Senator Musa Faki spoke earlier on the need for members to show up in committee sittings. And I wish he had actually matched his word with his action, Mr. Speaker, by staying in the chamber long enough. One of the biggest tragedies of this current Senate, Mr. Speaker, and I must say this with a very heavy heart, Mr. Speaker, is that it is extremely empty on most afternoons, Mr. Speaker. I have never seen Parliament as empty as it is. Mr. Speaker, I am used to seeing a Senate where people debate, and not on points of orders, Mr. Speaker, on bills and legislation, Mr. Speaker. That practice has since long disappeared because people have become transactional. They come here, they issue statements and disappear. In fact, Mr. Speaker, it's only that I don't want to name people. But if you see the number of people that bring statements to this House, many afternoon, Mr. Speaker, they consider that to be legislative work. Then you wonder, who is going to process this statement, Mr. Speaker? If everybody was just to come, lay a statement and disappear. Why do people fight so hard to be elected to come to this House, Mr. Speaker, then leave your chairs to be empty? Mr. Speaker, we must also be serious as a legislature. I listened to people lament this afternoon, oh, this is not working, labor, I don't know education, I don't know the other. Mr. Speaker, begin first of all by transacting even that business in this House, Mr. Speaker. This is a premium platform, Mr. Speaker. Millions of Kenyans yearn for the opportunity to sit in the legislature of their republic, Mr. Speaker. I don't understand this new generation of legislators that we have in this current session, Mr. Speaker, that people show up at 2:30 and by 3:15 you cannot see them in the House. Mr. Speaker, I don't think that it is for lack of things to do, Mr. Speaker, that you find many. Look at the experience, for example, Senator Oburu, the youth leader, is serving his 7th term in Parliament,
We have
Mr.
a
Speaker.
point of order from Senator Andy Okech.
Mr. Speaker, I raise understanding order number 22. And I hope on this one, I want to wish the majority leader the courage to be able to check point of order number 22 and Point of order number 23, Mr. Speaker. I do empathize, and Mr. Speaker, because they are very long-standing orders, allow me to speak to them without reading them because they are too long. And the reason why they are too long, Mr. Speaker, is because in this entire, Mr. Speaker, may you protect me from the noise the other side by Senator Cherargei, Mr. Speaker? Just protect me, Mr. Speaker. Because what the majority leader is talking about here is very, very important, Mr. Speaker. And because it's important, Mr. Speaker, the point of orders number 22 and 23 are functional point of orders, Mr. Speaker. They are the point of orders that prescribe functions of leadership of this House, Mr. Speaker. They define the leadership of the majority side and their deputies. They define the leadership of the minority side and their deputies. And they have got functions, including, Mr. Speaker, whipping members of this House to be in this House. Mr. Speaker, is it in order for our whole majority leader, Mr. Speaker, to get up and come here and start lamenting about his members who are not showing up in the House and therefore making the House always empty, Mr. Speaker? Is it an abdication of duty that majority leader, together with his deputy and majority whip, and deputy majority whip, and even the minority leader, Mr. Speaker, are not doing their work in terms of whipping members of this House to be in this House, Mr. Speaker? Why must we sit as senators, Mr. Speaker?
Senator Ndiokech, have your seat. Resume your seat. If I am the majority leader, Kiriari, what he meant about elections, once you're elected, you take personal responsibility. It is not about whipping members to be in the chamber. It is about personal responsibility and duty after you get elected. That is what he meant. And it does not do the work of the whip, which is done by Senator Boni Karwale. Proceed, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'm struggling to follow what my good friend Senator Eddy is trying to converse because, you know, I never whipped him to put up posters in Migori and ask the people of Migori that he wants to represent them in this House. Therefore, it cannot be my business to whip you as a member of the Senate because I'm a leader in this House to tell you come. Mr. Speaker, I was giving the example of Senator Oburu, a fine gentleman, a revered legislator, serving his 7th term in Parliament. But every afternoon, from 2:30 to as late as possible, sometimes, despite his extremely advanced age, Mr. Speaker, he has the energy to sit in this House. But you find young people, Mr. Speaker, that are in this House who show up for 2 minutes, they pick up their call, they disappear. They are chasing 1,001 things, Mr. Speaker, none of which is exceptional and bringing any value to the country. Mr. Speaker, I thought the rule of life, Mr. Speaker, is that you succeed first at one thing so that you advance to the next level. Therefore, I want to request and humbly plead with my colleagues that, Mr. Speaker, because we have got such a sacred responsibility, and there are many things that the country is looking up to us to resolve, can we find the time to attend House sitting, Mr. Speaker? If you look at the order paper today, Mr. Speaker, you will see more than 20 bills that are the committee of the whole stage, Mr. Speaker, some of which have been on this order paper for more than 5 months, Mr. Speaker, because we cannot raise 24 delegations. Surely, Mr. Speaker, do we need a Kamkunji, like we are being invited, Mr. Speaker, that we need to call people to come? These are not budgetary issues, Mr. Speaker. You don't require a budget, Mr. Speaker, for you to do your legislative work. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I don't know what Senator Eddy has eaten before coming into the House, but I am trying to address you, Mr. Speaker. He is actually over shouting, and I cannot concentrate, Mr. Speaker, because of the noise that he's making.
Senator Ndiokech, can you, if you are consulting the senators for a very low tone, mention the terms?
Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want us to take time, look into the issues that are being raised, and be fair to your country, because your country pays you extremely well. We are told many times that you are among the best paid legislators on the planet Earth. Can we also deliver quality work?
You know, and just stop, you know, my good friend Senator Kajwang, even as you expose on the challenges that we have in the Republic, it goes beyond just pointing out to the maladies and the challenges that you are facing. And be fair to it. It cannot remain on record what you said this afternoon, that despite the challenges that we have in our education sector, that our education sector produces only house helps. You are not a house help. You went to Moi University together with me. You are here because the education system worked. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, even as we complain about the things that are not working in this country, Mr. Speaker, let us not exaggerate some of these challenges. I believe this country has produced serious professionals on the globe. It's not just housemates, the way Senator Moses Kajwang wanted to paint it, Mr. Speaker. Be fair to your country, Moses Kajwang.
Senator Kajwang, what's your point of intervention?
Mr. Speaker, on matters of fact, I was with Senator Cheriot, Majority Leader, at Moi University, at the Student Center. We went to address a Kamkunji not too long ago, and the students told us the kind of problems that they are facing. And Mr. Speaker, is Senator Cheriot in order? In the morning session, while he was away, he's lambasting members who are not here. While he was away, Senator Cherarkei and Senator Onyonka put the CS for Labor to task because the CS Labor brought us a schedule showing the jobs that we have exported. Mr. Speaker, it is a fact. That report was tabled here, that the president has been gallivanting, going all over the world, and the bulk of the jobs that he has secured are housemaids. It is described there, Mr. Speaker. It is a fact that was tabled here. And Mr. Speaker, it is also a fact that India produces and manufactures technical and IT and computer science experts. And that's why Silicon Valley is dominated by Indians. Mr. Speaker, can the majority leader, even in challenging, yes, we had a good education at Moi University. That's why I'm here. But if we are exporting labor, if that is one of our products, if diaspora remittances are bigger than the returns from coffee and tea, Mr. Speaker, that means that the production of labor is our biggest industry. But
Senator
if
Kajwang,
we are producing house girls, Mr. Speaker, we should be ashamed of it.
Majority Leader, resume your seat.
Speaker, Senator Moses Kajwang has not disputed the fact that I laid bare in the Senate this afternoon, that he is misleading this House by claiming that the only labor that Kenya produces is housemaids. That is not a fact, Mr. Speaker. I know for the record, Mr. Speaker, you didn't speak of the percentage. You said only. Where did you learn your English, Moses? Only means 100%, Mr. Speaker. You can see now, Mr. Speaker is trying to amend his statement because he knows that he has misled this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is not the point that I'm trying to converse. I know for a fact, Mr. Speaker, that part of the reason why the foreign remittance, Mr. Speaker, is high is because we have serious professionals that we have produced, from doctors to engineers, that are serving all over the world.
Members, order, honorable member, allow the majority leader to address this point. Proceed, majority leader.
Mr. Speaker,
Senator Korir, Senator Gloria, allow the majority leader to proceed without interruption. Proceed.
Anyway, Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude, and I want to commend the senators that are in the House this afternoon, including my friend Moses Kajwang, longest-serving member of the Senate, Mr. Speaker, but always here at 2:30, sits patiently up to 6:30 on most afternoons, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to request Senator Madzayo to second this motion.
Senator Madzayo.
Asante, Bwana Speaker.
Bwana Spika aliposema mwisho kabisa, huo ni ukweli. Bwana Spika, kitu cha kwanza nataka kuunga mkono hoja hii ya kuweza kugeuza ratiba ama taratibu ya kalenda yetu ya nyumba. Bwana Spika, kitu cha kwanza ni kwamba kunazo sababu ambazo zinafanya tuweze kugeuza kalenda hii. Cha kwanza ni kwa sababu tumekuwa ile tarehe ambayo ilikuwa imewekwa katika kupeleka Senate mashinani imeweza kugeuka sasa na ikawekwa tarehe zingine za mwezi wa 11. Bwana Spika, vile vile pia itaweza kupatia nafasi maseneta kuweza kujiandaa na kusafiri kuenda mpaka huko Bungoma ili kuweza kushirikiana na ndugu zao wananchi wa Bungoma kuwa na hiyo ratiba ya Senate mashinani. Bwana Spika, mimi kama nikiwa nitaweza kutoa ule advice ama sijui tunaweza kuita namna gani, lakini ni kwamba katika hili bunge letu la Senate sasa imekuwa ni lazima tuzingatie mambo ya kwamba tuko na seriousness, ya kwamba hizi tabia ambazo tunaanza sasa za kuweza kwamba kuona kama seneta mwenzako anaongea na pengine huwezi kupendelea vile anavyoongea, unasimama mara moja na kusema kwamba ama unabofya kile kibwagizo kiko mbele yako, alafu unaweza kusema kwamba unataka kutoa hoja ya nidhamu. Hoja ya nidhamu, Bwana Spika, kama ninavyoelewa mimi katika ile wakati ambao tumekuwa hapa ndani na tumekuwa pamoja na ndugu yangu Cheriot na pia vile vile Kajwang', najua hoja ya nidhamu ni kitu muhimu sana, ambao kumuingilia mtu katikati akiwa anaongea pengine saa nyingine inakuwa inapoteza hata ule mwelekeo ama zile fikra alizokuwa nazo. Kwanza tuweze kujizuia, tumuache yule anayekuwa anaongea aongee mpaka amalize, alafu ndio utaweza kujua mwelekeo wake ulikuwa namna gani. Hoja nidhamu ni sawa, lakini tuzitumie kwa njia ya kisawasawa. Hayo ndio maoni yangu ambayo naweza kusema. Na cha mwisho ambacho mimi ninaona ya kwamba ni cha muhimu, Bwana Spika, hivi sasa tutaenda katika Senate mashinani, tutakuwa na watu wengi kule na ukiangalia hapa ndani hivi sasa utapata ya kwamba maseneta walioko hapa pengine ni kidogo kuliko ile nambari nitakana kuwa. Tumekuwa hapa nikikumbuka kama ile Senate ya kwanza ya mwaka wa 2013, Bwana Spika, ilikuwa inajaa sana mpaka ikifika saa 12:30 bado watu wamejaa, bado maseneta wamejaa ndani ya chambers sana. Ni ukweli kabisa, na ukweli ukisemwa saa nyingine inakuwa ni uchungu. Ni ukweli kabisa, ndani ya hii Senate tukiangalia hivi tunaona tumepoteza mwelekeo. Naomba ndugu zangu, ni muhimu sana kuona ya kwamba tukiwa hapa ndani tunajifundisha na tunajua, wale ambao wamekuja hivi sasa waweze kujua. Tukama Boni Halwale huketi hapa mpaka mwisho kila siku, hiyo hatuwezi kataa. Ndugu yangu Sifuna pia anaketi hapa mpaka mwisho, hatuwezi kataa hiyo. Kwa hiyo nataka pia kuuliza wale wengine, haswa wale maseneta wapya, kwamba wamekuja ni lazima waweze kujua. Hata Senator Gloria pia yuko pale, huketi sengine mpaka mwisho ukiwa kuna sababu, lakini ana zile tabia zingine ambazo anaingia hapa ndani sitaendelea pande hiyo, lakini usije na vile vitisho vyako hapa vya kuvaa sijui namna gani, umepaka sijui rangi gani. Bwana Spika, mimi nataka kusema tu kwamba naunga mkono ndugu yangu alivyoleta hii hoja ya kwamba sisi tuweze kugeuza ile kalenda, na nafikiri itakuwa ya matumizi zaidi. Asante Bwana Spika.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that notwithstanding the resolutions of the Senate made on 15th of February 2024, approval of the Senate calendar, and on 19th of August 2024, alteration of the Senate calendar pursuant to Standing Order 32-4. The Senate resolves to further alter its calendar, regular sessions for the third session 2024 in respect of Part 4 to 1, continue with regular sittings until Thursday, 31st of October 2024. 2, proceed for recess from 1st of November 2024. And 3, resume regular sittings on Tuesday, 12th of November 2024. Honorable members, I will allow members to contribute to this particular motion. I have a number of members who've requested to contribute. Senator Orwoba Gloria.
Thank you, Speaker. It is important that, Speaker, we contribute to the matters we want to contribute, Mr. Speaker. And I want to support this proposal, Mr. Speaker. I want to support this because I have seen what recess does. People come back rejuvenated, but I have also seen that sometimes it is better we stay in chambers and have the debates that we need to have, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, coming from a background that believes that all jobs are dignified and must be respected, Mr. Speaker, as a specially elected senator, I want to say that even as I take my recess, Mr. Speaker, in the proposed dates that we have, Mr. Speaker, we go back to talk to the housemaids that Senator Kajwang was referring to, Mr. Speaker. Those are dignified jobs, and those are voters, and they should be respected, Mr. Speaker. So as a house, sometimes, and this is why I think this proposal that is being brought by the majority leader is important, because I think Senator Kajwang needs to go back home and appreciate the people that voted him in. Some of those people are housemaids that Senator Kajwang, and I'm sure he has a housemaid in the house, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, as I support this proposal, Mr. Speaker, I want to remind all the senators that recess should be taken seriously. And when we go for recess, when the time comes, now that it has been postponed, Mr. Speaker, I urge all the senators to go and talk to all the electorates, including the housemaids.
What is your point of order?
Just,
Senator Gloria. Senator Gloria, allow Senator Kajwang to raise his point of order. Proceed,
Mr.
Senator
Speaker,
Kajwang.
it is out of order to impute improper motives on the part of colleagues. We had a debate here, a conversation on statements, a matter that has been prosecuted. On discussion of the calendar of the Senate, Senator Gloria Orwoba is imputing that Senator Kajwang has got a low opinion of housemates. I never said that. I never, and it's not about sounding. Mr. Speaker, can you direct Senator Orwoba to stop clout chasing and focus on the matters at hand, and to withdraw the kind of motive that she's trying to impute on my part? Mr. Speaker, it is house girls that feed my children, that feed me, that clean my house. I hold them in the highest esteem. The only question here is that we are not producing jobs for the future. That's my problem.
Senator
So, Mr.
Kajwang,
Speaker,
you've made your point.
please guide
Senator Gloria.
Senator Gloria to focus on the things that are before us, or else she logs out.
Very well, Senator Gloria, kindly resume, and as you submit or
Mr. Speaker,
contribute to this motion, refrain.
Mr.
from
Speaker,
making
I am
reference
contributing to the motion.
Proceed.
The motion is about the calendar of Senate.
Senator Gloria,
yes.
allow the chair to conclude the directions he was giving.
Okay.
Continue submitting to the motion, but refrain from making reference aligned to the extent that is not within the motion on the adjournment of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand guided, and I am encouraging. Mr. Speaker, the motion is about the calendar, and in that calendar, we have recess. And you know, we have seen even most of the times people think recess, you go to sleep. But recess is actually about going back to your constituency of people who elected you. so that you can touch base with them, Mr. Speaker. Amongst those people are plumbers, mamambogas, and housemaids, and house girls, Mr. Speaker. So for me, I am just encouraging all the senators in the House that when they go back to recess, they should not forget the house girls, because those house girls, those are dignified jobs. And Mr. Speaker, as I was contributing to that motion, I also wanted to really place the importance of all jobs, senators, National Assembly members of Parliament, all jobs, even your job in the Speaker's panel, Mr. Speaker. And this is being addressed in the calendar that we have there, because recess, the purpose of recess is so that we can touch base with the people who sent us here to represent them, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell you, as a specially elected senator to represent women, Mr. Speaker, we fall under the cadre, most of us, of house girls. So I am speaking to those specially elected constituency of people. We respect them, and Mr. Speaker, even if we have to export 1 million house girls, Mr. Speaker, to Dubai, to wherever, some of these house girls, I have lived in Denmark. We pay some of these house girls more than we pay the senators in this house. So, Mr. Speaker, we should remember that every argument we bring to this
Senator
house,
Gloria.
Mr. Speaker,
Senator Gloria.
and I want to conclude by saying I support the motion.
Senator Sifuna.
Honorable Speaker, let me begin by saying that I share in the frustrations that have been expressed by the Majority Leader, because I sit with him on the Senate Business Committee, and also you do. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the matters that are on the order paper, it's sometimes very, very difficult for us to clean the order paper, and I'm sure that each one of us is interested in making sure that their business moves. At least I can speak for those senators on the minority side. We have tried to develop a system where they tell us in the leadership, especially the whips, when people are traveling, when it is likely that we can have matters put to a vote, and so on and so forth. Honorable Speaker, of course, this calendar alteration has been necessitated by the matters that came before us during recess. And after the extension of the 2 weeks, Majority Leader, it was also my expectation that at least yesterday we would have a full house so that we would be able to transact some of the business. And that was a bit disappointing. But the chair, and I'm happy that the Speaker who's on the chair today was here with me yesterday, and we prosecuted the matter until the last order. And it was, as the situation was as described by the Majority Leader, the House was quite empty. And sometimes I also wonder, is there another Senate somewhere? You know, because you could be sitting here thinking that you are the Senate, and yet the quorum is somewhere else. And I also sometimes ask Eddie, my Senator Eddie here, to also take me to these places that he goes on the afternoons. And because, Honorable Speaker, I don't think it is the work of the whips. And Senator Khalwale can bear me witness, Honorable Speaker. It is not the work of the whips to carry senators physically on their backs and deliver them to the House.
Resume your seat. What is your point of order, Senator Eddie?
Mr. Speaker, you know, I don't know what is going on with the leadership today, Mr. Speaker, because the leadership keeps on imputing very improper motive on members, Mr. Speaker. I think, Mr. Speaker, it is not fair for, and I think it was on a lighter note, but the problem is that on this answer, anything that is said cannot be a lighter note outside there. It is wrong for my deputy minority whip to actually try to tell the nation that I'm not here in the afternoon, Mr. Speaker. When his own bill was here yesterday, Mr. Speaker, it is me who actually sat here and contributed the entire 20 minutes on his bill, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, if you go unanswered, Mr. Speaker, and check the number of times the deputy minority whip has been in this house in the afternoon compared to Eddie Okech, Mr. Speaker, I think you will find that I've been here 80 times much than the deputy speaker, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, there is something called Mzalendo Trust, Mr. Speaker, that had actually given a score on this house and showed that it's Senator Cherargei who is the most available person in this house, followed by yours truly, Eddie Okech, in terms of president in this house, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish that my very good friend, Mr. Speaker, Senator Sifuna, can withdraw that statement, and also appreciate that the fact that I supported him yesterday up until the last minute, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna, resume your seat and resume your contribution. Sorry.
Honorable Speaker, I'm quite surprised by the path that has been taken by Senator Eddie, because I also take him to nice places, especially in the evenings. So if I ask that you show me where you usually go in the afternoon, don't take it personally. But Speaker, I want to conclude by saying that I look at this calendar and it is extremely tight because of the slow pace at which business moves. And if we can commit, I wanted to even suggest maybe to the majority leader that we should designate special days for putting the question and divisions so that it is mandatory for people to attend. And that way, all our bills move. Because I can see all of these, many of the bills on the order paper, Honorable Speaker, you will see these are members' bills. And we have already been 2 years in this House. At this particular point in time, you have to demonstrate the sort of legislative work that you have done. So when we say these things, Honorable Speaker, it's not to impute negativity on our colleagues. We know that the senator's life, it is a harrowing job. I understand that. And especially, I feel especially, sensitive for those who have to travel long distances to come to Nairobi for house business. But at the end of the day, Honorable Speaker, it is for the benefit of all of us to be able to be in the House. And a few things that the majority leader said that I have a different perspective on. Honorable Speaker, I had opportunity to sit with a few members of the diaspora. The reason why diaspora remittances are more than any other industry in this country is because we are not creating jobs here. And that is something that has been acknowledged even by the Kenya Kwanza government by trying to put in place certain things. Even yesterday, the debate we were having about having cheaper electricity, putting in place infrastructure, all those things are the things that other countries have done to encourage investment in their countries that then result in jobs. So it is not that we are exporting labor. We have been unable to create opportunities for people here. And if you speak to the people who have spent their lives in the Middle East, in the Eastern Europe, in the US, doing menial jobs, Honorable Speaker, they would like to come back home. And in fact, that is the message that they told me to carry when I came back, that they would like to come back home. They would like to retire in Kenya. They would also like not even just to retire, but find opportunity to do the same jobs that they are doing out there here in Kenya so that they can be around their families, Honorable Speaker. So lastly, Speaker, we have to be a bit more, I don't know what I can say. I have challenged my friend, the leader of majority, that we need to maintain that spirit we had when we were discussing that motion on nationhood, the state of the nation. It would really feel bad if we lost that spirit. So that if something is wrong, and the way that we had started, if something is wrong, something is wrong. I don't think there is anybody, Honorable Speaker, who can be proud of the country we are living in. When you see the images we saw yesterday on the news, that police officers are bludgeoning a student at the university, and a police officer just casually drops a tear gas canister, or where the young man is lying. I don't think anybody or any one of us can be proud to live in such a country. And we need to go back with that spirit that as we conduct our affairs here, we can set the objective truth and set our country right. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Sifuna. Senator Cherargei.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I think this is a procedural motion. I want to support Majority Leader on this procedural motion on the review of our calendar. I think I agree and share with the frustrations. I'm proposing that, and the Minority Leader is here and Majority Leader is here, is there a possibility, Mr. Speaker, to develop a system within the caucuses of both minority and majority to alert members? Because looking at the order paper, 90% of the people who own bills in this today's afternoon are not in the House. So it means if those people are not here, Mr. Speaker, we can't proceed. It means the House will adjourn prematurely, Mr. Speaker, and we know the effect of prematurity. Mr. Speaker, the secondly is that, secondly, Mr. Speaker, is as I am wondering, because today, Mr. Speaker, Senator Faki raised an issue of resources within the running of committees. And you are aware that Senate has a pending bill of 450 million. You sit in the liaison committee. You are aware that because of budget constraints, every committee will get 7 million for domestic travel, Mr. Speaker. I am wondering how will our facilitation to Busia, for example, be? Because the Senate looks like to be struggling in terms of facilitation and finances in terms of it. Even as we applaud the Senate machinery, Mr. Speaker, because we want to understand the people. We are a byproduct or the product of devolution, Mr. Speaker. We want, when we want to go to Busia, people should understand the workings, the functionality, the ability of the Senate, Mr. Speaker, through Senate machinery. What we need to be told is that are we well-resourced enough to avoid a sitting? Because this rescheduling of Busia, myself, I had made proper arrangements. Because the calendar, Mr. Speaker, the calendar I had been given was to be in Busia on 23rd September, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you can imagine the financial and emotional anguish. I'll go through, Mr. Speaker, in reorganizing the diary, Mr. Speaker. You know, my cows are calving at that season, Mr. Speaker, so it will be hard to balance to be in Busia and taking care of my cows and also harvesting maize, Mr. Speaker. And we have a small matter of sugar matters, Mr. Speaker. So at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, I want to appeal to Senate Business Committee because some of us do not have a privilege in sitting there. Can they find a way of engaging members so that we don't need to be having a conversation? I'm agreeing, Mr. Speaker, I want to protect members. Most members, Mr. Speaker, who step out, especially in the afternoon session, I want to inform the majority leader, they always go to the Senate lounge, and some of them have healthy challenges. Maybe they want to use restrooms, Mr. Speaker. They want to make phone calls to follow issues with their members of public in various counties, to console us as stakeholders like cabinet secretaries, console their party leaders, like Secretary General of ODM. Maybe there is a matter on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, when you see Senator Eddie Okech stepping out of the Senate, even you, I normally get you calling Bomet to find out issues, to clarify a few issues before you come and cooperate. So I want to ask Majority Leader if he was imagining other things that members are doing. I can confirm to him that members are doing very good things when they're in the Senate lounge, Mr. Speaker, when they are taking tea and mandazi, when they are consulting, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes you get emergency from your family, Mr. Speaker, and you cannot make phone calls from the floor of the House. Some people raise, and Mr. Speaker, and you have to appreciate that as young legislators, Mr. Speaker, we have more business than youth leaders like Senator Oburu Odinga, Mr. Speaker. You know, most of them have, how do you say it in English? Most of them,
Senator
Mr. Speaker.
Cherargei, kindly refrain on the language.
Sorry,
Mr.
Mr.
Please
Speaker.
use parliamentary
They
language.
are finished. Mr. Speaker, they are finished in giving birth, Mr. Speaker. So they don't have many problems like young legislators like Senator Eddie, Mr. Speaker. Some of them are still trying to find relevance and footing in politics, Mr. Speaker, in this country. So I want to appeal that I agree with Majority Leader. We have our caucus as Kenya Kwanza. We mobilize ourselves. If Senator Cherargei has a business or Senator Sigei, there's the Majority Leader, if Senator Karen Nyamu, be alert in advance. And Secretariat kindly, because and this is special appeal, most of our colleagues who have bills, sometimes they don't have moving notes. I want to ask your office of the Speaker to also come in handy and assist members who have bills but do not have moving notes, so that when you ask them if they are ready to move their bill, they are not even ready to move. So I want to appeal, even as we look at the challenges, Mr. Speaker, but I want to challenge Senate Majority Leader. The way Senator Eddie has said, even as leadership, from the House leadership, chairpersons of the committees, they should lead by example and be present in the House. Like the Deputy Majority Leader, I want to challenge the Senate Majority Leader to work closely and encourage the Deputy Majority Leader to be always here so that we can get that inspiration. If the Majority Leader and Deputy are not here, Mr. Speaker, the people who are ordinary members might not feel the motivation to be here. I'm not saying she's not there, but she's always there, but sometimes held up in other engagements or parliamentary duties. So we need, at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that as leadership, we lead a way forward and allow that cohesiveness, Mr. Speaker. And if we can borrow the spirit of Minority Leader, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you the Senate will change. But we have agreed, let us move forward, Mr. Speaker. Let us engage and moving forward. This motion will ensure that it goes into place. With those very many remarks, I support this motion and I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Erge. Senator Keroche Tabitha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, also for giving me this opportunity. And I rise also to support the alteration of the Senate calendar for the part 4 of the 3rd session. I think the senators should work on targets to ensure that the business for the 2024, meant for 2024, should be complete before the end of the year. So I like the way the majority leader has said that we need to push, to alter the calendar so that we can ensure that we can finish the business. And I was surprised to see Senator Kajwang mentioning of the job, and giving a description of the job when he's a well-exposed man. I know he moves all around the world. He knows the maids of Canada, the maids of UK drive cars. They work on hour. 1 hour, you cannot afford to pay them when it comes here to Kenya. So when you present them there, they will get better pay. And when they're coming back, the way they will help their families, I think we'll see progress in this country. What we should be working on is to ensure we grow our economy to meet those standards. Because here, our maids, the way we pay them, to me, I should be fighting how they should be paid more. You can imagine how many hours they work. But when you go there, you have a maid that can work for the hours that Kenyan maids work here, you cannot afford. They earn more than 100,000. I think more than teachers, more than even, I don't know who. So I think when we were doing the Kenya Kwanza, we were saying kazi ni kazi, and we ensure that we dignify all the jobs that are here, and we should work very hard to ensure we grow our economy so that we can meet the international standard. The reason we are sending ours outside there is because our economy has an issue. So let's fix our economy. You'll see our maids and the teachers and the senators, parliamentary, whatever, they are equal. But today, here in Kenya, we have that gap. But when abroad, there is no difference. Whether you're working as a maid, you're working as a waiter, you're a manager, you earn the same. You park the same cars outside there at the parking. That is how we should ensure the Kenya will be. But we need to grow our businesses, we grow the manufacturing, we ensure that we get that environment for businesses to thrive in this Kenya. So, Mr. Kajwang, you've traveled. Don't lie to people that you don't know the work of the maid. When we send somebody in Germany to do a maid, it's better off paid, highly paid, more than the DCs of this country of ours, more than the county commanders of this country of ours. And when they bring their money here, you can see the difference. You will never even know they were maids. But here in ours, you are thinking the maid in your house is the same maid in abroad. But I know one day, even our mates here in Kenya will match the international. So I support the alteration of this calendar so that we ensure that we can finish the business meant for the 2024. It will be so sad that we can forward business meant for this year 2024 to 2025. And I think it's not right for a senator like the Nandi senator to stand here in front and lie to the whole of Kenya that Senator Keroche is not in this house. I'm very sure if we compare who is in this house more than the other, it is Senator Keroche, not Senator Nandi. And I know the Nandi people can confirm that, and the Nakuru people can confirm that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Senator Kajwang.
Right of reply.
Honorable members,
Mr.
Senator Kajwang, proceed.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Senator Kinyua. Resume your seat, Senator Kinyua. Take your seat, Senator Kinyua. Please take your seat. Senator Kajwang, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, this being a procedural motion, I intended to make very minimal remarks until Senator Keroche spoke. And until Senator Keroche mentioned Senator Kajwang and Senator Cherargei. Mr. Speaker, Let me start with the easier part. The easier part is to support this motion and to remind the House that we have a lot of work to do. And Mr. Speaker, we have a very short time to the end of the session. In the next few months, we will be hosting the East African Legislative Assembly Games here in Kenya, and we know how disruptive that is. In the next few months, we'll be having the Conference of Parties on Climate Change in Baku in Azerbaijan. In the next couple of days, a few of our colleagues will be going for the UN General Assembly. The schedule towards the end of the year is very packed. Mr. Speaker, we hope that we'll also be discussing the formula on revenue allocation. And for those of us who have been here, that has been one of the most contentious issues. And I'm happy Majority Leader corrects me that it will come in the next session. Mr. Speaker, we will be talking about our appointee to the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. So there's a lot of work, Mr. Speaker, not to mention Senate Mashinani, which is usually 1 week of serious work outside Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of the Senate, that even when we were on recess, the Senate kept the nation informed on the things that are happening in dark places in this country. If it was not for this Senate and the Committee of Roads that is chaired by Senator Karungo Athangwa and the Senator for Kisii, amongst others, this country would not have understood the problems at our airports and the issue of Adani. And Mr. Speaker, everywhere we go to, we are told that the Senate is doing a good job in keeping the government in check. I want to congratulate all those senators who have come out to speak about the excesses of those in power. During the recess, Mr. Speaker, the Senate has held to account governors, those imperial lords in our counties. When they come to the Senate, we have held them to account and put them in their place. And Mr. Speaker, I'm so happy that yesterday, when the cabinet sat, when the first broad-based government cabinet sat, one of the first things that they communicated in their resolution was the invocation of the constitutional principle where if someone makes a decision that leads to the loss of public funds, that person is held liable. And Mr. Speaker, for the first time I saw from the cabinet a statement that public officers who contribute to loss of public funds shall be surcharged and shall be held individually responsible. Mr. Speaker, even when this parliament was attacked by young people who really they were not coming to attack us, were coming to have a conversation with us, it was a Senate that insisted that we must continue with our sessions. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge the House Business Committee that there are certain motions, certain bills that have been in the order paper for quite some time, that we need to prioritize them so that even senators can report progress. And Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate Senator Cherargei. The other day, I saw that he's one of those senators who has brought more legislative proposals and statements to this House. I believe all of us have got burning and pressing issues that can be brought to the floor of this House. Mr. Speaker, as a House, let us agree to sort out this issue of the oversight mechanisms for senators. I don't want to call it an oversight fund because it is not money that you'd call a fund. It is oversight mechanisms and arrangements or giving senators the instruments and tools that can allow them to go around and carry out their constitutional mandate. Right now, as we speak, Senator Omtata has been forced to go to court to compel a county government to produce accountability records. Mr. Speaker, we need to give ourselves teeth. No one is going to give it to us. If other parties were to have their way, they would detooth this Senate. If we donated our powers, or if we donated the space to any other institution, they are not going to give us more. They are going to take away from the Senate. And so we must find a bipartisan way of sorting out this issue of oversight arrangements so that in between our sessions, because on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we are out there in the counties, we should be able to facilitate senators to carry out their constitutional duties. Mr. Speaker, as I finalize, because this was a procedural motion, I think this Senate is expected to have a fairly adult conversation on issues affecting this nation. And Mr. Speaker, the issue of jobs has come up. And I don't want to take a personal approach to it. And I'm glad that Senator Keroche is in this House. Perhaps I might not know about every other senator, But I believe that Senator Keroche is one of those who's creating jobs in this republic. Mr. Speaker, and I want to disclose this. When Senator Keroche joined this House, she talked to most of the senators. She talked to me and told me, I'm expanding my operations. Could you get me someone with certain qualifications so that I can consider them to push my organization to the next level? Very few entrepreneurs will tell you that. Very few entrepreneurs will reach out to colleagues and tell them, I am expanding, I am scaling up. If you have someone, recommend them to me. Because some people will go to their relatives and family, and those are the ones who kill industry. Senator Keroche, I'm very proud of you, and I'm very proud of what you've been able to achieve in a tough environment. But we cannot be lenient with a government that spends money on training, spends money on education, and then does not spend time and money to create employment opportunities for those people. We cannot mince words. We must tell the government the truth as it is. Why can't we enable more people to be industrialists and entrepreneurs like Senator Keroche? Why should we spend money on an education system that gobbles up the bulk of our budget for us to then spend more money to go look for jobs for those people out there? Mr. Speaker, the labor market follows the rules of supply and demand. If you've got an excess supply of labor, it means that your local market, you have already satisfied the conditions, you have already satisfied the demand for the local market. For you now to go to Germany to look for more jobs for your people. And yet, we are here as senators, the upper house, Mr. Speaker, trying to be apologetic over a government that has failed to create jobs for our people. Whether we are exporting nuclear scientists, Mr. Speaker, whether we are exporting tech professionals, whether we are exporting lawyers. Mr. Speaker, we are in an environment where in this country you have doctors without jobs. And yet, the doctor-patient ratio is not where it's supposed to be. You have a situation where you have lawyers who are tarmacking.
Senator Kajwang, what's your point of order, Senator Gloria?
Mr. Speaker, I raise on a point of order on statement of fact. That is Standing Order 105. Mr. Speaker, I have heard Senator Kajwang saying that this government is not creating jobs and this government is actually not intentional on solving the issue of the lack of jobs, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is open knowledge and it is in the public that we have various funds. We have the Uwezo Fund, we have the Women Fund, and all those funds are intentional to ensure that we create enterprises. To be able to make jobs, Mr. Speaker, we must push enterprises. We even have a new ministry of micro and whatever enterprise, Mr. Speaker. So is it in order for someone to stand and say that this government has made actually no intention in creating jobs when we are spending a lot of, including the Hustler Fund, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I think he should say maybe that we have done it at 50% or 30%, but not that we have not done it as a government.
As you conclude, Senator Kajwang, could you also be confined to matters of facts? As you conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I invite the House to peruse publicly available documents, the report of the Kenya Institute of Public Policy and Research, KIPRA, the report of the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. The numbers are there. The unemployment ratio, the unemployment rate is there. The Federation of Kenya Employers, the rate of unemployment is there. It is not getting any better. And that is why you have now a policy of growing diaspora remittances. And Mr. Speaker, as I said, diaspora, the product that you are calling diaspora remittance is human capital. Mr. Speaker, when we went to the United States, in the state of Minnesota, we found highly trained Kenyan doctors running the medical services in that country. That is how it used to be in the past. They did not go there yesterday. They went there 20 years ago. That is how it used to be in the past, that we would produce doctors and export doctors. Mr. Speaker, we used to produce engineers and export engineers. Mr. Speaker, the London Metropolitan Transport System was designed and is supported by a Kenyan, produced and educated here in Kenya. In Minnesota, the state, Mr. Speaker, the head of nursing and medical services is trained at the University of Nairobi, did his locum and internship in Kenya. That is a kind of export that we should be doing. Mr. Speaker, even when it comes to coffee, we export prime coffee. We export prime tea. That is what Kenya has been known for. That is what Kenya should be known for. And that is what our government should strive to be known for. That we are exporting professionals of the highest caliber who can bring back home skills that can drive this economy. And I am not afraid to say that someone who went to the university, it is demeaning for them to go to Qatar and be subjected to house calls, Mr. Speaker, when that person studied architecture, that person studied law, that person studied engineering. Let us not be apologetic. Let us not be embarrassed to call it what it is. But, Mr. Speaker, I do not believe that Senator Orwoba, 9 months from today, because she has told us there was no withdrawal, so there will be some things after 9 months. 9 months from today, I do not think that that baby that she will raise and take to school, that she would be happy for that child to study engineering, only for that child to become a housemaid. Let us not be mediocre. Let us not be mediocre. And let us tell the government not to treat Kenyans in a mediocre fashion. We have the capacity to be the Silicon Savannah. Mr. Speaker, we have the capacity to export IT labor. We have the capacity to export legal labor. The president should not be using taxpayers' money to go and look for jobs of guards and house girls. And we are not demeaning them. We are just saying that let him create those opportunities here at home. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Now, Senator Halwale, you definitely cannot then...
I rise under Standing Order number 66 to request that since we have now become repetitive on this procedural motion, Mr. Speaker, you put the question. You invite the mover to reply. I want to do some other business.
Senator Gloria, order, Senator Gloria. Senator Sifuna, order members. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 109, I call upon the mover to reply so that we can progress on this motion. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 1091, I propose the question that the mover be called upon to reply on the motion. Majority Leader. Honorable members, will as many as of the opinion that the mover be called upon to reply say aye? Aye. The ayes have it. Majority Leader, proceed to reply.
Speaker, I want to thank colleagues who have taken time to speak to this motion, who have supported, and the commitment that has been made this afternoon by colleagues, Mr. Speaker, that they'll try and attend these sessions every afternoon, Mr. Speaker, debate, engage, Mr. Speaker, choose to be informed, not spew ignorance, Mr. Speaker, or half-truths, Mr. Speaker. I want to appreciate, Mr. Speaker, the interest with which many of our colleagues have on the government programs of Kenya Kwanza. I would invite Senator Moses Kajwang that
he is looking for the information on bilateral labor agreements, Mr. Speaker, in the wrong places, Mr. Speaker. Such information as the jobs that the President has secured cannot be found in the postings that he's referring to, Mr. Speaker. Information on KNBS and such like information, Mr. Speaker. I want, Mr. Speaker, to appreciate as well, Mr. Speaker, the commitment that has come from Senator Cherargei and Senator Eddy, that despite their young age and interest within and without of this House, Mr. Speaker, that they will always stay between 2:30 and 6:30 in following what the leadership is urging them to do, Mr. Speaker. And that is how they will become leaders in this House in the future, Mr. Speaker, out of their dedication. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply.
Now, Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 84-1, the matter does not affect counties, and I now put the question that notwithstanding the resolutions of the Senate made, Senator Boni Halwale. Kindly take your seat. I now put the question that, notwithstanding the resolutions of the Senate made on 15th of February 2024, approval of the Senate calendar, and 19th of August 2024, alteration of the Senate calendar, pursuant to Standing Order 32-4, the Senate resolves to further alter its calendar, regular sessions for the third session, 2024, in respect of Part 4. To 1, continue with regular sittings until Thursday, 31st of October, 2024. 2, proceed for recess from 1st November, 2024. And 3, resume regular sittings on Tuesday, 12th of November, 2024. Honorable members, will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Could you please call the next order?
Order number 11, motion, alteration of dates for the sittings of the Senate in Busia County.
Senate Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to move the motion on the alteration of dates for the sitting of the Senate in Busia County. That aware that on the 11th of July 2024, pursuant to Article 126(1) of the Constitution, the Senate did resolve to hold its plenary and committee sittings in Busia County from 23rd to 27th of September 2024, acknowledging that the recommendation of the Senate Business Committee to alter the dates for holding the sittings in Busia County and the need to put in place necessary measures for successful sittings. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to alter the dates for the Senate Mashinani in Busia County from 23rd to 27th of September 2024 to the 28th of October to 1st of November 2024. These are moved by about 4 weeks, Mr. Speaker. I had explained earlier that there are certain contingency plans, Mr. Speaker, that haven't been concluded between us and the county of Busia, Mr. Speaker. You do understand that a visit in the Senate Mashinani program, Mr. Speaker, involves so many other plans, Mr. Speaker. In fact, Mr. Speaker, this program is so elaborately organized that it has now attracted global recognition. And in the beginning of next month, the minority leader and yours truly have been invited to Athens, Greece, Mr. Speaker, to receive an award on behalf of the Senate of the Republic of Kenya for innovative practices in entrenchment of democracy, Mr. Speaker, courtesy of the Senate Mashinani program. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, if the Secretariat and the technical people that are putting together this program, Mr. Speaker, ask that we delay our going to Busia by 4 weeks, Mr. Speaker, just so that we can have an even better Senate Mashinani than what we have had in Turkana, in Uasin Gishu, Kitui, Mr. Speaker, so that we make it better and make the people of Busia feel and interact with the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Then it's a simple ask for us. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is a fairly straightforward matter. I don't intend to be long on it. We've spent the afternoon debating, informing each other, Mr. Speaker, on various things.
Therefore, I don't want to speak very long on this particular matter. I want to invite the Senator for Migori, Senator Eddie Okech Gisheru, Mr. Speaker, to second.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honor to second this motion, and I think it's in order, given that in the wisdom of the leadership of the House, Mr. Speaker, there are some assessment that has been done with regard to probably resource constraints, Mr. Speaker, that definitely we need to look into. Mr. Speaker, it is true that even now, Mr. Speaker, the Senate operations money hasn't come to the senators, and actually they are struggling to actually keep we are struggling, actually, I should not say they, but we are struggling to keep our operations going because of some challenges with the exchequer releases, Mr. Speaker. So it's indeed true that some adjustments need to be made. But, Mr. Speaker, even as we hope for this adjustment, Mr. Speaker, apart from just taking the proceedings of the Senate to the grassroots level, Mr. Speaker, it's also important to say that my senior Senator Cheriot, the majority leader, this is an opportunity actually to go and learn of opportunities that exist in the grassroots to inform this Senate in terms of the policies that we need to be advancing, Mr. Speaker. For instance, I've had an elaborate conversation around this issue of job creation, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, sometimes when you go to these grassroots communities and be able to genuinely engage and involve yourself in the economic ecosystem in those regions, Mr. Speaker, you will be able to identify areas that should be able to inform our policy framework and the kind of legislation we need to pass in this House that can interact with issue of job creation, Mr. Speaker. For instance, I know that Senator Cheriot likes Mursik so much, Mr. Speaker, but when he goes to Busia, which is very close to the great county of Kisumu, and also extend to the border of Kenya-Uganda, Mr. Speaker, you will realize that the economy of fish is very big there, Mr. Speaker. We have seen people, fighting over menial jobs that are created abroad, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes, even if you talk about absolute numbers on those jobs, you might find that the so-called maids that we are giving abroad, Mr. Speaker, can be sometimes 100 or 200 a year. The other day I saw the Prime Secretary launching about 167 teachers abroad, Mr. Speaker. But actually, in those local communities, exists a very big opportunity to create a lot of jobs for our young people. For instance, I want to invite particularly the majority leader that when you're in Busia, take a keen look at the fish economy in that region, Mr. Speaker. The fish economy in this country, Mr. Speaker, we are being told by experts, to be specific, the GASP research have shown that the gap that we have in this country in terms of demand for fish, Senator Cheriot, is about 600,000 metric tons. These 600,000 metric tons, locally we only produce about 200,000 metric tons. About 400,000 metric tons is being filled in by actually our neighbors in Uganda, where we are going to spend our time in Busia, and China, to be specific. But GASP has also indicated that Lake Victoria alone, Mr. Speaker, has got the capacity of holding the entire 400,000 metric tons in terms of fish production, and not just fish production in terms of wild catch, but also in terms of just growing fish through what we call cage farming, Mr. Speaker. In that region, Mr. Speaker, when you go to the neighborhood called the Homa Bay County, there is a farm called Victory Farms. Victory Farms is currently doing about 10,000 metric tons, and it is considered the biggest in that region. Can you imagine, with only 10,000 metric tons of fish production per year, Mr. Speaker, this I'm informing the majority leader through you, Mr. Speaker, through that alone, the Victory Farm is able to employ 1,000 people directly as permanent and casuals in their farms. But also, through that, they have been able to create 200 outlets that employs another 700 people. If just one investor in that region can be able to put about an economy that employs 1,700, why should we be fighting about abroad jobs when, even if you think about people like Rio Fish is the biggest aggregator of fish in Homa Bay County, Mr. Speaker, and Rio Fish does only about 300 metric tons. We are talking about a gap of 400,000 metric tons. And Rio Fish can be able to employ further 600 people through their casuals and permanent opportunities in that fish industries. What am I saying here, Mr. Speaker, as I finish? I'm saying that as you go to that grassroots community, Mr. Speaker, let's fetch for those opportunities that you can be able to come and legislate in terms of creating job opportunities for our people. And Busia, I believe that if you look at it, it's going to be an eye-opener for the Senate when we go there. Therefore, I support this, and I hope that we will get the resources needed to make sure that senators can spend time in Busia for those 4-5 days will be in Busia. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, the same character of people missing in sessions here, Mr. Speaker, I hope that will not extend to people missing in Busia, because that will be a learning opportunity for senators to see and bring back. I second, Mr. Speaker, and I really, really appreciate the fact that this has been considered and is going to be in our calendar this year. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karen Nyamu, resume your seat. Senator Gloria, Senator Mutinda, resume your seat. Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that aware that on 11th of July 2024, pursuant to Article 126(1) of the Constitution, the Senate resolved to hold its plenary and committee sittings in Busia County from 23rd to 27th of September 2024. Acknowledging the recommendation of the Senate Business Committee to alter the dates for holding of the sittings in Busia County and the need to put in place the necessary measures for successful sittings, now therefore, the Senate resolves to alter the dates for the Senate Mashinani in Busia County from 23rd to 27th September 2024 to 28th October to 1st of November 2024. Honorable Senators, considering that this particular motion is similar to the earlier motion, I will only allow from those who order members. There are members who requested in earlier debate to speak to this motion. I will allow only 2 members and under 2 minutes each to contribute to this motion. And Senator John Kinyua.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii. Nasimama kuunga mkono kubadilisha kwa tarehe ya kuwa na kikao katika kaunti ya Busia, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, inapatia seneti fursa ya kutembelea mashinani na kupata kuchangamkia mambo ambayo inawahusu wale watu katika ile kaunti, Bwana Spika. Haijapotea kwangu, Bwana Spika, seneti hii imetembea katika kaunti nyingi, tukianzia tumetembea kaunti ya Kitui ambapo Bwana Spika tuliona ya kwamba wakati yule gavana alikuwa ameanzisha kiwanda cha kutengeneza nguo. Bwana Spika, tulienda mahali kunaitwa Wasingishu. Bwana Spika, Wasingishu tuliona wakulima wakati yule walikuwa wamejawa na ghadhabu wakisema ya kwamba wanataka bei yao ya mahindi iweze kuangaliwa. Bwana Spika, tukaambiwa tuzungumze mahindi. Bwana Spika, nakumbuka Mheshimiwa Murkomen aliambiwa, Murkomen, wacha Kiingereza, una Kiingereza kizuri, leo ongea mahindi. Bwana Spika, tukienda mashinani tunaweza kupata haya mambo moja kwa moja kutoka kwa wananchi. Vile vile tuliweza kutembelea hospitali ya Moi ya Referral Hospital, Bwana Spika, na vile vile Bwana Spika pale tuliweza kuona shida zinazo wakumu. Bwana Spika, tulitembelea hivi juzi tumekuwa katika kaunti ya Turkana, Bwana Spika, tukaona vile ambavyo mambo ya stima inavyofanywa pale, Bwana Spika, tukiwa katika kamati. Vile vile Bwana Spika, maswali mengi yaliweza kuibuka. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, hii inapatia vikao katika gatuzi zetu, inapatia seneti fursa ya kuweza kuungana na wananchi, kuweza kuulizwa moja kwa moja maswali na wananchi, na vile vile kuona mambo yanavyotendeka pale mashinani kwenyewe, kwa Bwana Spika, kwa sababu shughuli yetu kubwa kama seneti ni kuangalia mambo pale mashinani. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, mimi naunga mkono kubadilisha kwa tarehe, hata japokuwa nilikuwa nimejipanga vizuri kwa zile tarehe ambazo zilikuwa zimewekwa, lakini mzungu anasema mtu asiye ni mtu pumbavu tu peke yake asiyebadilisha mawazo, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, naunga mkono na nasema tena asante kwa kunipa fursa hii. Asante.
Asante sana Senator Kinyua. Senator William Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also rise to support this motion to postpone Senate Mashinani to Busia from next week, Monday to 28th of October, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we know the constraints, we know the challenges that we are facing. I believe that's the reason why, in its own wisdom, the House Senate Business Committee decided that we reschedule by 5 weeks. Honorable Speaker, I know majority of the members, including what Senator Fernandi Jerarge had said, they had made arrangements and even booked where they are going to put up, Honorable Speaker. But I believe the facilities will allow them to utilize in the new dates, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also wanted to inform my members that the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, Honorable Speaker, has done very well, and members, they need to follow. There are many opportunities of employment that has been created, Honorable Speaker. For the last almost close to a week, the Kenya Kwanza government has put in the papers for people to see opportunities that have been created. In the housing alone, affordable housing alone, Honorable Speaker, the government has created over 112,000 job opportunities, Honorable Speaker. While we were in Turkana last year for Senate Mashinani, Honorable Speaker, we were able to launch as ICT committee apps, free Wi-Fi in 2 markets, Honorable Speaker, and that one has created opportunities for the youth to do online opportunities, to do online jobs, Honorable Speaker. And we also had another opportunity to go and check like Turkana wind power in Longayalani, Honorable Speaker. Those are the experiences that we get by going for Senate Mashinani, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there are these industrial parks that are being put up at the counties. And these are also opportunities that the Kenya Kwanza government has enabled the counties to generate additional opportunities, Honorable Speaker. It is important, even if you're in the position of the minority, Honorable Speaker, they need to talk about the positives that have been done, that are there, despite the challenges that we are going through, Honorable Speaker. We need to give credit where it is due, Honorable Speaker. Our constituencies, Honorable Speaker, they are going to have every ward in the 290 constituencies will have innovation hubs. And these innovation hubs, Honorable Speaker, will also create opportunities for the youth. Apart from having a center manager, 290 center managers in the innovation hubs, Honorable Speaker, it will also give the youth, the GNCs, opportunity to access free internet. And this free internet, they'll be able to do research, they'll be able to do, Honorable Speaker, online opportunities, even at night, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I support that we push forward so that we prepare ourselves, Honorable Speaker. But what is also very important is for the leadership of the House to ensure the business that has been generated for this particular 3rd session is completed within this particular time, so that when we go for the long recess in December, Honorable Speaker, we come back next year on a clean slate and start on new opportunities, Honorable Speaker. I know the majority that said most members are not in the afternoon. I think also it's important to let the majority leader know that our other job is representation. So we go to also offices to look for opportunities for our electorate, Honorable Speaker. That's why once in a while people are not in the House, because they also do the other part of the job that we are given by the electorate. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support.
Honorable members, pursuant to the directives I earlier on gave, I close debate on that particular motion and call upon the mover, the majority leader, to reply.
Mr. Speaker, I thank members who have taken time to speak to this very important motion. I hope we can garner the support of the requisite number of colleagues, Mr. Speaker, so that we are in Busia in the month of November and get to learn, interact, deliver a Senate Mashinani to the people of Busia that is far much better than what the other 3 Senate Mashinani episodes actually did offer, Mr. Speaker. It is my sincere hope, Mr. Speaker, that at that particular time, Mr. Speaker, Kenyans will appreciate more the work of the Senate, unlike previously in the past, Mr. Speaker, where we've had different varying experiences, Mr. Speaker, and get to see real time Mr. Speaker. When Senator Kinyo was speaking, Mr. Speaker, he mentioned something that piqued my curiosity. When we were in Kitui, we visited the Kitui, I can't remember the exact name, and I wish Senator Wambua was here to remind me, Kikotech. I'd wish to know how it's doing in this particular day and age. Because, Mr. Speaker, remember, right now, the national government is moving to offload its involvement in business, and hence the conversation of privatization in the sugar mills and so many other institutions where government has interest. I am seeing an emerging trend where governors, out of perhaps, I don't know, informed by what scientific evidence, Mr. Speaker, or what project viability proposals, Mr. Speaker, are setting up industries to be run and managed by county governments. If the national government is struggling, Mr. Speaker, to manage many of the industries, tell me how good our counties will be to manage many of these, Mr. Speaker. And I just thought of that particular industry, and I see many county governments, Mr. Speaker, putting up this or the other industry. And it will be a good study, and perhaps we can be informed later on. If there are any industries that have been set up by the county government of Busia, it will be good, Mr. Speaker, to not only just visit the factory, but also assess their books and see how profitable they are, what is the sustainability plan, that institution, what are the governance issues that have arisen so far, Mr. Speaker, as part of our campaign to entrench devolution in this land. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply. Thank you.
Honorable members, I make a determination that pursuant to Standing Order 84.1, the matter does not affect counties, and similarly make and ascertain that we have the requisite quorum on this particular motion. I therefore, honorable members, put the question that aware that on the 11th of July 2024, pursuant to Article 126, Sub-Article 1 of the Constitution, the Senate resolved to hold its plenary and committee sittings in Busia County from 23rd to 27th of September 2024, acknowledging the recommendation of the Senate Business Committee to alter the dates for holding of the sittings in Busia County and the need to put in place the necessary measures for successful sittings. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to alter the dates for the Senate Mashinani in Busia County from 23rd to 27th of September 2024 to 28th October to 1st of November 2024. Honorable members, will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Now, honorable members, would like to rearrange the order paper, and I defer order numbers from 12 to 27. Order 12 to order 27, I hereby defer and rearrange so that we call order 29. Order 29. Clerk. Senator, please approach the chair.
Order number 29, the National Disaster Management Bill, National Assembly Bills number 24 of 2023, second reading.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the National Disaster Risk Management Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2023, be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, this is not the first time that this bill is coming to this House. In 2014, or I think it was 2015, Mr. Speaker, when we had the Westgate attack, it was mooted the idea to have an agency that coordinates our disaster response. Because reading afterwards of that disaster, Mr. Speaker, it was said that the first responders actually spent quite a substantial amount of time arguing on basic protocols, Mr. Speaker, on how to respond, Mr. Speaker, to disasters such as those and so many others, Mr. Speaker, where there was argument on who should do what, which commander cannot take orders from the other, and many such things, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, the idea to actually have an institution that coordinates our disaster risk management, Mr. Speaker, was mooted. And it's unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that has taken this long. I see now this is actually introduced as a National Assembly bill. And because Senate many times is magnanimous and rises beyond petty institutional ego wars, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to consider this particular bill, despite the fact that I know for a fact, and Senator Moses Kajwang will bear me witness, that the initial drafters of this bill actually is the Senate of the Republic of Kenya through members of this House. Mr. Speaker, this bill, as presently presented to this House, was actually first read, published actually rather, that's the title I was looking for, in the Kenya Gazette Supplement number 80 of 2023, in the 31st of May 2023, and read the first time here in the Senate on the 3rd of July 2024. As I have pointed out, Mr. Speaker, the principal object of this bill is to provide a legal framework for the coordination of disaster risk management activities in both levels of government. And it's important to point out, Mr. Speaker, that this has actually evolved, because at that particular time, and if you follow through many legislations, Mr. Speaker, if you're a keen follower of our legislative processes, Mr. Speaker, you know that even in that particular time, despite the fact that we're in the devolution cycle, we didn't do legislations, Mr. Speaker, with county governments in mind. I want to appreciate the improvement that has come of late, Mr. Speaker, where when you replicate or when you do a body at the national level, you try, much as there is still a lot more to be done, Mr. Speaker, and replicate a similar institution at the county level, Madam Speaker. The only concern, and I agree many times, Mr. Speaker, I know I am the mover of this bill, and therefore I move the bill as is and leave it to the House to inform the second stage and the third and the final stage on how to amend and perhaps make the bill better, because a good idea can always give a way to a better idea, Mr. Speaker. But I must put a disclaimer, Mr. Speaker, that I have insisted, and I have said this to all authorities, including to the highest office of the land, Mr. Speaker, that I am not comfortable at all with the creation of any new agency in this country, Mr. Speaker. That we have sufficient agencies to do all or anything that arises. Therefore, if there is thinking, Mr. Speaker, that a certain new agency needs to be brought on board, like now this particular National Disaster Risk Management Agency, Mr. Speaker, then such legislations must be accompanied by transition clauses of which other institutions we are folding up. Otherwise, if we continue with this practice, Mr. Speaker, to the best of my count, we have more than 350 state agencies, Mr. Speaker. And you wonder doing what? We have county governments, we have ministries, we have state departments, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to challenge the committee actually that is considering this legislation to particularly point out and establish many of these institutions that we are trying to help them coordinate and come together, Mr. Speaker, on the transitional amendments that shall come out of this bill, Mr. Speaker. We need to wound up those institutions so that even the staff actually can be part and parcel of this institution. Because, Mr. Speaker, we keep on talking about the wage bill, the struggles that we were talking about a few minutes ago, why we are not creating jobs locally, Mr. Speaker, is because it is extremely expensive to run government of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. And part of the reason that makes it expensive to run government, Mr. Speaker, is because of recurrent expenditure. We are employing too few people, Mr. Speaker, at the expense of millions others, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I hope actually that when our committees retire to bring a report to this House on this particular bill, Mr. Speaker,
they will be guiding the House towards the merger, Mr. Speaker, of different agencies. I know there are different agencies that respond actually to the various disasters actually. National drought, I don't know which one, and this and the other, Mr. Speaker. We must, if we are creating an agency, Mr. Speaker, then all those institutions must be folded up, Mr. Speaker, and come into this one institution that responds to disasters, Mr. Speaker. The bill further seeks to establish the county disaster risk management committees in each of our counties, as a role of disaster risk management is a shared function between the national and county government under the 4th schedule of our constitution, Mr. Speaker. And that is a fact, Mr. Speaker, because there are certain disasters that actually occur at the county levels, which our county governments have ability to assess the risk, Mr. Speaker, and mitigate. The main premise of this bill, Mr. Speaker, is to approach disaster risk management in a manner that seeks to respond to effectively in a timely manner to any disaster or risk of disaster, and to prevent the adverse effects of disaster recovery as far as possible, and the livelihood of the communities, Mr. Speaker, that are affected actually by these disasters, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Madam Speaker, the establishment of a comprehensive framework will outline actually the strategies for how to mitigate, how to prepare, Mr. Speaker, how to respond, recovery, that will better protect our citizens and infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. We risk leaving actually people will represent in this House, Mr. Speaker, to the devastating impacts of disaster. Therefore, it is imperative that we prioritize the passage of this bill, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, to safeguard the well-being of our country and the people that we represent in this House, Mr. Speaker. Part 1 of the bill is all about preliminary provisions, Madam Speaker, of the name, the title, the object of the act. Part 2 of the bill, Madam Speaker, establishes actually the institutional framework on disaster risk management, which includes National Disaster Risk Management Authority, the authority that I've spoken into, Mr. Speaker, and I've said, I expect, Madam Speaker, that before the final passage of this bill, that we must include transitional clause, just like we did for SHIF, Madam Speaker, and transiting NHIF. I am very clear in my mind, Madam Speaker, that this country does not need any new agency, any new institution. We can only make better that which we have. And therefore, if we are creating a new authority, Madam Speaker, it is on the understanding and the premise that there are other institutions that we are actually either winding up completely or transitioning its people, its operations into the new agency, so that you don't end up with a continuous recurring bill, Madam Speaker, of close to 1 trillion Kenya shillings, Madam Speaker, just paying a few government workers, Mr. Speaker, while millions others continue to languish in poverty for lack of opportunity because we are not able to manage, Madam Speaker. We must make government lean and efficient. And part of making it lean and efficient, Madam Speaker, is to look keenly actually and read through. And in fact, I wish the members of the National Cohesion Committee, Mr. Speaker, were part and parcel of us. Actually, we said it in the bipartisan motion that we passed here when we had the challenges that we had in June. And I hope, Madam Speaker, like somebody observed this afternoon, you know, we had given actually our committees 30 days to look into the resolutions that were into that bipartisan motion. I hope our committee chairpersons can soon start to pass or give us actually resolutions of how far they are in implementing the resolutions that this House had passed at that particular time. It will be a waste of the country's emotion, the country's time, Madam Speaker, having spent the time that we spent here, speaking so candidly to each other, to only let them lie in the hands of Madam Speaker. I expect, Madam Speaker, that each of our chairpersons that we task with the various responsibilities will begin reporting back to the Senate on the actions that they have taken as directed by that particular motion when we spoke here in the month of June, Madam Speaker. I was speaking to part 2, Madam Speaker. Part 3 of the bill contains provisions on dealing with the manner in which disasters may be classified and establishment of the disaster electric information system, ways in which you are able to detect actually disaster, Madam Speaker, and the risk that is available. Technology is available worldwide, Madam Speaker, including here in Kenya, on ways in which you can point out and, you know, signal people way ahead of time, Madam Speaker. The people that were victims of floods here in the month of April, Madam Speaker, if we had such detection mechanisms, Madam Speaker, we would have sent the early warning systems
out to detect, Madam Speaker, and inform people to either move away from the causes of those floods, Madam Speaker, and therefore saving life. Part 5, Madam Speaker, contains the provisions on institutional framework at the county level. And I said this is particularly important, and I'm happy about this, Madam Speaker, because it speaks to the growth of the Senate as a legislature in terms of, and even the office actually, of the drafters of this legislation, Madam Speaker, that there is an appreciation in the country, Madam Speaker, that there are 2 levels of government. This was a rare occurrence, Madam Speaker, in the 2013 to 2017 Senate. Many times we'd pass legislation and leave it to fight. Our understanding then and appreciation of devolution was that you either do a silo law for the national government and one for county government, Madam Speaker. But this interdependence and coordination, Madam Speaker, of actually the 2 levels of government, Madam Speaker, is a welcome improvement. Therefore, Part 4 speak to that particular issue of setting up of this institution actually at the county level, where you're setting up what is being referred to as the risk management committees to act as a focal point for coordination of disaster risk management activities at the county level and give information either to the national office or to the county governor's office, Madam Speaker, for mitigation of risk, Madam Speaker, and response to disaster. Part 5 contains the financial provisions, which include the funds of the authority, financial year, annual estimates, as well as accounts and audit of the authority. And this is where I disagree greatly with our colleagues in the National Assembly, Madam Speaker, with tremendous respect to them. They are the house that actually handles the budget. They know the fiscal difficulties that this country continues to exercise. Yet, they send to this house a bill that creates an extra authority without deference to what do you do with other institutions that are already doing work that is similar to this. I expect a house that interacts with the budget of the Republic of Kenya, appreciating the difficulty and the challenges that we are in presently as a country, Madam Speaker, to at least have accompanied, because, you know, Madam Speaker, finances are not infinite. These are resources that are scarce. If you're putting finances to a particular place, then it follows naturally that another place must lose. It is this idea that resources are infinite. There's a lack of appreciation, and I'm sorry to say this, on the part of our colleagues in the National Assembly, to know that there is a limit to which you can create authorities and continue to charge the exchequer, Madam Speaker, without actually putting a strain to the economy of this republic. I expect them, Madam Speaker, that anytime you propose an authority, unless there is no other authority or state agency, Madam Speaker, including a ministry that speaks or addresses matters that are being proposed in that agency, Madam Speaker, to remove, because it's an addition on one side and a subtraction on the other, Madam Speaker, because these are resources that are scarce, and therefore I expect a lot of work to be done on Part 5 of the bill by members of our committee. Part 6, Madam Speaker, as I draw to a close, contains miscellaneous provisions on the protection of information held by the authority and county committees. These also create offenses and prescribes penalties thereto. You know, Madam Speaker, I have seen, for example, when the national government has issued directives. You remember that here in Nairobi, where Senator Sifuna represents, there are many people that died along the banks of Nairobi River when it banks. When the government issued directive the other day and said that we need to move people who are living within the riverbanks, you find some third-grade politicians, Mr. Speaker, some occupying very high offices in this country, Mr. Speaker, reducing it to be an issue about tribe. How tragic can it be, Mr. Speaker? I don't think that the people that died in the month of April belong to any particular tribe. Those are Kenyans, and we expect that any responsible leader will expect to guide those people and tell them that you're endangering your lives. Let government provide alternative places for those people to live. Those are the offenses that are being referred to in this particular bill after identifying the risk, because it is also, Madam Speaker, dangerous for you to be informed that there's a risk here, don't occupy this particular part, and you continue to defy, Madam Speaker. We must provide sanctions to Kenyans who want to continue to do such things, or even institutions, you know, Madam Speaker, that continues to endanger the lives of people. Madam Speaker, it is only in Nairobi and in this country where you find actually a government agency or a government department, they go ahead and dig a huge trench
in a part of the road where citizens are used to passing with no warnings, and they leave for the night. In the course of the night, when people are walking, people are jogging, Madam Speaker, people fall into that particular ditch. Some even die, get accidents, Madam Speaker. Yet there are no sanctions against such institutions. That's part of the risk occurrences, Madam Speaker, that we need to point out, so that any agency that causes harm to people by creating a risk and not providing the proper mechanism through which you ensure that you don't put the lives of others at risk while undergoing either repairs or creating something, Madam Speaker, we need to sanction such institutions, Madam Speaker. And that is part of what is being provided in Part 6. Part 7, Madam Speaker, contains the provisions of delegated powers. In terms of these powers, the CS responsible for matters responsible of disaster risk management may, in consultation with the Council of Governors, make regulations generally for the better carrying effect of the provisions of this Act, Madam Speaker. As I conclude, I wish to state that this is a very important bill, and therefore I urge honorable senators to read, internalize, and improve on this particular bill, Madam Speaker, so that we can conclude on it and ensure that our citizens actually live in a safer country. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request the Majority Whip, Senator Boni Halwale, to second.
Senator Halwale.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to second the leader of the majority, having ably moved this motion, and I do so as moved. Madam Speaker, I'm doing this not as an opportunity to express my personal thinking of whether this legislation is good or bad, but because we have a constitutional mandate to ensure that a bill which has come from the National Assembly as a message, we must deal with it. I therefore second, and I want to put all my hopes not only in the debate in this House, but on the proceedings that will take place in the committee when deliberating on this, because, Madam Speaker, creating yet another authority will come with expense. I have gone through. It is creating boards. All boards come with expenses. They have put their chairs. They have put their director generals. They have put their members of the board who will all be deserving payment. A responsibility which, in my view, Madam Speaker, can be taken by the ministry, the departments, and agencies responsible for disaster management. Madam Speaker, I say this with due respect, because I know that today you might be sitting pretty, next week, next month, even up to the whole year, and nothing happens. But when it strikes, it can be extremely devastating. I therefore feel and think and believe that we should streamline the running of the agencies, the departments responsible for disaster management, because it is not something that will happen on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-week basis, so that the disaster management preparedness can be there in the ministry, but not in an authority. All these people now, they'll be reporting on duty 8 to 5, Monday to Friday, week to week, month per month, doing what? We can put our resources to better use. But because we have a committee that will sit on this matter, maybe for the first time, it should be the decision of this Senate that we have completely disagreed with the need of establishing an authority for this purpose, disagree with the National Assembly, And then the mediation committee will eventually come together and say that let's streamline the way government does its work without necessarily putting together another authority. Madam Speaker, having said that, I hope that the committee will see how flawed it is that counties that are the seat or the home of disasters have been allowed, for example, in this bill, to have only one person representing the interests of the 47 counties on the board. If we have recognized that disasters take place in counties, then we must allow counties to have proper representation. If then there will be need for this authority to be in place. Having made those reservations clear, Madam Speaker, I conclude by seconding the motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that the National Disaster Management Bill, National Assembly Bills number 24 of 2023, be now read a second time. I have Senator Okech. Eddie.
Madam Speaker, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to also chime into this bill and actually a proposal to create yet another body to look at our national disaster management issues. I am persuaded that in the spirit of what the Senator of Kakamega has presented, which is we want to avoid as much as possible any tussle or any lack of collaboration with the National Assembly in the bills that come from the National Assembly. And therefore, sometimes it's important to support some of these bills. But Madam Speaker, I really, really appreciate the thought process that the Senator of Kakamega has expressed himself on this bill. Because, Madam Speaker, disaster is not something that you can put an omnibus bill on. Disaster by nature and by design occurs at different levels, Madam Speaker. We have got natural disasters, if you like, you can call them vagaries of nature, and we have got human-made disasters, Madam Speaker. All these disasters that we see having in this country, Madam Speaker, have got their own specific causative factors and therefore their own specific response mechanism. In fact, in some cases, even preparedness that they must have. Creating another body to actually come and cluster, take each cluster and then put all of them together under one body, Madam Speaker, will do a disservice to how, as a country, we approach disaster readiness and response in this country. Madam Speaker, let's take, for example, drought in this country. The strategy for dealing with drought in the country cannot be given to one authority to be able to figure it out. It's just very simple as such. Because you will need a scientific approach to that particular disaster on drought, including sometimes a place whereby you need to predict and advise farmers on, for instance, should you be able to change your season for planting? Should you be able to change the kind of seeds you're going to plant? And in some cases, if we have got drought that has affected us to the extent that needs us to look for opportunities for getting seed or getting other resilient seeds from abroad, or even getting food to intervene for those who have gone without food, then it will mean that naturally a drought-resistant agency should be in place to respond to that particular drought problem. If you look at fire, for instance, Madam Speaker, how would a fire disaster that we keep on seeing mushrooming everywhere in a place like Nairobi depend functionally on an authority nationally to be able to respond to it properly, Madam Speaker. I have seen the governor of Nairobi struggle even to identify the causative factors that are causing fire in Nairobi, that are causing a lot of havoc, health hazards, and even wastage of property in the county of Nairobi, Madam Speaker. To the extent that for you to scientifically be able to deal with fire disasters that we are seeing in Nairobi, perhaps it's not the same way you're going to deal with the fire that is happening in Migori County, which could be an issue of forest fires that are caused by charcoal burners. This cannot be vested in an authority, Madam Speaker. And even to be very, very disappointed with this bill, if you want to classify terrorism as a human-caused disaster, and then you give it to this particular authority, Madam Speaker, to deal with issues of counterterrorism and to figure out the nuance of dealing with terrorism, which is an issue that should be dealt with in the Ministry of Interior and the Ministry of Defense, so that you can be able to deal with it awesomely. How do you vest this in an authority called National Disaster Management Authority, Madam Speaker? It defeats my understanding. My proposal, Madam Speaker, would be, we have got Ministry of Special Programs. That ministry must then be able to classify all departmental agencies that can deal with specific clusters of disaster that we are experiencing in this country, and be able to devise prompt and most modern ways of engaging with those specific clusters of disasters that happen within our borders, to the extent that we can have a cutthroat strategy operationally to be able to respond to disasters in this country, Madam Speaker. We saw when floods came about, people were running helter-skelter because there was this notion that you feel like if floods are happening in the country, then the order of response must come from the presidency and come down and trickle down to all members of the county assembly and then to the governors, to the extent that we saw some of the worst responses to serious issues of flood in this country. If they were left to ministerial departments and to some extent to a number of counties to be able to devise their own ways of dealing with disasters that come in their own area, Madam Speaker, I believe that we could be able to have a very proper response and apt operation to be able to not only deal with a response mechanism to some of these issues, but even recovery, Madam Speaker. You would understand that when disasters happen in this country, Madam Speaker, you will see the political notion of responding to them immediately with some kind of bravado and some kind of PR mechanisms, to the extent that within that 1 week that a disaster happens, everybody is active. The president is active, governors are active, every politician is active, everybody is talking about it, corporations are active, raising money to respond. But then, Madam Speaker, what happens to true recovery of people who have been faced with those disasters, Madam Speaker? Can we be able to speak authoritatively to the fact that those who are affected by the floods in Tana River, Madam Speaker, during these huge floods, their lives are better because of response that we had in this country? Can we be able to speak authoritatively that families that were affected by serious floods in Yatike constituency in Migori County, where I come from, Madam Speaker, in Kabuto, in places like Luanda, where I come from, Madam Speaker, just because the government responded with issues of giving them some donations in terms of food, blankets, and a few things here and there, solve their problems of the impact of those floods, Madam Speaker? Can we be able to say authoritatively that from floods that we faced in Budalangi, Madam Speaker, and we keep on facing those floods year in, year out, because of simple national response that we have collectively, by giving people response mechanism and response charitable goods like food and blankets, their lives are better, Madam Speaker? No, they are not. Those people are still suffering, and some of them don't even have shelter because there was no response connected to recovery to these people. There are people in Mathare, Madam Speaker, there are people in Mukuru kwa Jenga, there are people in Mavoko who are still facing serious impact
of floods that we had. Why is that so? Because we ended up centralizing the notion of disaster response, so that it's a response to help you eat today, but not know how you survive tomorrow. For you to survive tomorrow, there has to be a proper recovery plan, Madam Speaker. And that recovery plan can only happen if you avoid putting all these clusters of disasters in this country under one omnibus authority that then is supposed to respond to it. Therefore, Madam Speaker, this bill is really a dangerous bill, because apart from just wasting taxpayers' money and being able to put people and creating for them jobs, Madam Speaker, this bill will be the one big hindrance that will be able to make sure that we never properly prepare and respond to disaster in this country. I'm disappointed, Madam Speaker, that in this bill, there is even proposals that that authority can run as a corporation. Basically, you are saying that this authority should actually be registered as a corporation under the register of companies. Because when you start arguing that this, under section 2 of this bill, you start arguing that this authority will have the powers to own property, both movable and unmovable, to open bank accounts, to start borrowing, to also do lending. You are creating a corporation in this country, Madam Speaker, to deal with the disaster. How else can I speak about disaster without thinking about this commercialization of people who are going to suffer in this disaster, Madam Speaker? Because if you're proposing that you want to run a corporation that will deal with this disaster of whichever kind in the country, Madam Speaker, then what you're doing, Madam Speaker, is that you're basically creating a corporation that is supposed to mortgage our suffering as a people of Kenya during disaster and make any money from it. I wish that we could do a proper response to disaster by being able to make sure that we pass regulations that can be able to empower different agencies that are dealing with different clusters of disasters in their own way. And Madam Speaker, as I conclude, in this House, and I did promise, time without number, I've said that any bill that seeks to centralize any operation on basic needs of Kenyans, because disasters, most of the time when they happen, they do touch on serious basic needs. And any bill that seeks to centralize that, if you look at part 4 of this bill, Madam Speaker, that talks about counties being given some committees that are only responsive to this larger authority that has got a serious board, and there is no coherence in terms of how that function arms, in terms of how those counties get funded and financed. Yet the national authority, you are giving the power to be able to borrow, to be able to lend, to be able to own assets, to be able to get its own independent budget, and you are denying counties that. That is something I will never support. Because when those disasters happen, Madam Speaker, they do happen in Migori County, they do happen in Kakamega County, and the point of call, Madam Speaker, starts with the MCAs, people who are with the people on the ground, Madam Speaker, to the extent that when anything happens, when a fire happens in Nairobi County, or happens in Kuria, where I come from, Madam Speaker, the first person that the people will call there is the MCAs. And then the MCAs will look for the MP. And the MP will look for the governor and the women rep. The local leadership will coalesce around responding to this problem. The moment you deny them the functional capacity in terms of resources to think about how they respond to this properly, Madam Speaker, then it becomes a problem. Let's rethink how we want to deal with the disaster issues at the county level, how we want to house the functions of dealing with disasters at the county level, to the extent that, Madam Speaker, we will be happy to see counties being self-reliant, self-sufficient, with incredible capacity to deal with any kind of fast natural disaster that they experience. Because the truth is, when these natural disasters happen, sometimes, and actually in most cases, they don't happen in an equation whereby they affect the entire nation. For instance, when you look at the issue of floods, yes, it was a national conversation, but the impact was felt at very specific counties. And I've counted a number of counties that did experience these floods to unimaginable levels. Tana River experienced crazy floods. But that was not true, perhaps, to other counties. Migori County experienced incredible floods. Nairobi experienced incredible impact of floods. Busia County experienced incredible effects of those floods. But not maybe to the same extent that Vihiga experienced, or maybe to the same extent that Kakamega experienced. If you put an omnibus institution that then wants to deal with disaster at that national level, what then happens to immediate response and sustainable response to those disasters when they occur in those particular communities? This is one area that, Madam Speaker, should actually embrace the spirit of devolution. And the spirit of devolution is that when there are resources, when there are strategies to operationalize preparedness, to operationalize response, to operationalize recovery mechanism in terms of disaster, that is something that must be absolutely decentralized, absolutely devolved to the grassroots levels, Madam Speaker. Therefore, I appreciate the spirit of this bill. I appreciate the attempt to be able to actually put in place a way of responding to disasters. But, Madam Speaker, functionally, this bill should not see the light of day because it's just going to create more jobs that are going to cost taxpayers money, and should not see the light of day because it's going to centralize a critical agency that is supposed to be devolved. And more importantly, Madam Speaker, it is going to form a canopy against a number of cluster organizations that deal with specific areas of disaster response, like drought, like fire, like terrorism, and others that need to have independent agencies that can be able to deal with them. I do appreciate the fact that it is in the Senate, but I want to urge the members of the Senate that let us rethink such bills that perhaps are going to centralize very important functions. And therefore, Madam Speaker, with a lot of humility, a lot of respect, a lot of appreciation of the work that has gone here, I don't support this bill. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Sifuna.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to give my views on the bill, Honorable Speaker, and I have identified what I consider positives in the bill and those that, in all honesty, I have problems with. I will not take the path that has been taken by the Senator for Migori to wholesale condemn the bill, because in my view there are some good provisions. Honorable Speaker, let me start with the things that I consider positives. If you look at Section 4 of the proposed bill, Honorable Speaker, they are what they set out and call guiding principles of disaster risk management. There's something they called an all-hazards approach to disaster management. Honorable Speaker, we have had disasters here in Nairobi. And if people hear that there has been a fire, say in a market or as the one that happened recently in Mukuru Kwanjenga, everybody's mind is tuned to treating burn victims. And they forget that these people's houses have been affected. They have no places to sleep. There's children who are going to school who have no places to sleep. Books have been destroyed. Clothes have been destroyed. Personal property and other effects have been destroyed. So I'm hoping that if this is going to be the guiding principle to disaster management, we must identify all hazards that go or result from a disaster. Then the next one I like under subsection 2 is enhancing the capacity of the local communities as a front line to disaster risk management. Honorable Speaker, many speakers here contributed, have given examples of the disasters that have happened in Nairobi. In fact, Honorable Speaker, if you take the example of the floods that we experienced, if you speak to the people who are living in those structures along the rivers, there is no person who just puts themselves at risk voluntarily. They have been forced into some of these risky accommodations because of their financial standing, Honorable Speaker. You will find that the accommodations that have been offered closer to the river, on top of bridges and all the other, unsafe areas, are actually cheaper
if you ask for the rental prices of those accommodations, they are cheaper than the others. And if you speak to the community there, Honorable Speaker, they will tell you that if you have conversations within the community and they are told this is not an area you should be occupying, many of them are willing to cooperate, Honorable Speaker. And if you enhance the capacity of the local communities there and train them, as is proposed in the bill, as frontline actors in disaster risk management, I think it would be something that is positive, because we should be looking more at the preventive side other than being reactionary and coming down to offer assistance when the disaster has happened. Then there is a third one of transparency and accountability. Honorable Speaker, after the floods that we experienced here in Nairobi, many homes were affected, especially in Mathare and Ruaraka. One of the things that we have continued to say as the leadership in Nairobi is that there was no transparency. There was no transparency, Madam Speaker, on how even government response was coordinated. There was no transparency in what was required of the community to do. If you speak to the Member of Parliament for Ruaraka, the Honorable TJ Kajwang, he is still livid, Honorable Speaker, because initially the communication that came from government was that they were going to demolish structures up to 30 meters away from the high water line. And how that moved to 50 meters and then to 60 meters, and then structures are being demolished way beyond what we had been told is the area that would be affected, is something that nobody gives us an answer. And this is what we're saying. We would like that there be transparency and accountability in disaster management and approach to disaster risk management, Honorable Speaker. Then there is the question of the protection of the vulnerable. And I like this as a guiding principle, especially the old, the disabled, the women and the children in these areas must be treated very specially. Then, of course, Honorable Speaker, number 5, it says supporting, under subsection 5, support of the national governments and the county governments, including the local communities in disaster risk management. If you look at the 4th schedule of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, this is one of those functions that is co-shared. If you look at function number 24, disaster management is listed as a national government function. Under function 12 of the county governments, firefighting and disaster management is a function of the county governments. So that support, Honorable Speaker, is critical. And I will discuss some of these, the challenges and between, when it comes to the support from national government to county governments, Honorable Speaker, and we're hoping that there would be greater synergy in making sure that these disasters are managed in a prudent way. Honorable Speaker, the next thing that I consider positive in this proposed bill is found under section 48, where we are introducing a fine for people who make false claims, who claim that they are victims and they are not victims, because we have seen this specter even here in Nairobi. Our communities there, the Nyumba Kumis and the chiefs and the local administration have tried their best, Honorable Speaker, but there is this specter here in Nairobi, because the problems of the people are so entrenched and they are bigger than what is actually put out there, Honorable Speaker, so that if somebody even who was living in another constituency separate from where it happened, say Mradi fire, if you call a meeting at the chief's office there saying, oh, everybody affected by the Mradi fire should come there for assistance, you find people who are not even living in Mradi also showing up. And sometimes you don't blame them, because they know at least when they go to those centers, there will be something to take home. There will be food. But at the end of the day, we want now people to know that it is going to be a criminal offense for you to make false claims. If you are not a victim, you have not been affected, please allow those who have been affected to be helped without you coming to, again, reduce even the share of the help that is supposed to get to the victim. So there's a proposal to have a 1 million shilling fine for false claims, or a 1-year jail term, or both for people who make false claims. And we must address the broader question of the state of our people, Honorable Chair, because as I've said, it is not always the intention of people to make these false claims, but they find themselves having to do it in order to survive. Another one, Honorable Speaker, and this is the last positive that I have seen, is under Section 50, the bill proposes a 10 million shilling fine or a 10-year jail term for people who misappropriate relief food and relief equipment. Because this is another problem, Honorable Speaker. The people in possession of relief food and those who have been given even the equipment to be able to help. You find people selling relief food on the market. You find people selling mosquito nets and mattresses and other things that have been meant for the people. And I want to thank the Senator for Migori here, because at the ODM party, he is our disaster manager. And he has done a fantastic job. There have been no complaints. In fact, he has done a good job. Even the Red Cross is jealous of the work that has been done by Senator for Migori. So the people who misappropriate, and there have been no complaints. As SG, I am here to assure the House that I have not had any complaints as regards the job that was done by Senator Eddie during the disaster response by ODM. But those few who want to take away what has been donated by Kenyans in good faith to be able to help their fellow countrymen, now they will face a jail term of 10 years or a fine of 10 million or both. Now, Honorable Speaker, if you allow me, I will touch very quickly on the things that I consider negatives. The first negative, Honorable Speaker, has been touched on by the people who've spoken before me, the senators who presented before me, on this desire to always come up with new authorities and new boards and new, structures at the national level, Honorable Speaker. So under Section 5, Subsection 5, you will see that there's a new authority that has been created there for disaster management. This is a big problem for me, and I always look at the composition of those authorities. I have always had a problem with them. If, Honorable Speaker, the role of disaster management is shared, you should see that reflected in even the composition of the board or the composition of the authority. But if you go to Section 9, or on the composition of the board of the authority, 5 out of the 9 members are direct national government appointees. And yet, this is a shared function. In fact, Honorable Speaker, there is only one representative from the Council of Governors. And this is an imbalance that we continue to protest as a Senate. We feel that if a function is shared, then it should reflect even in the balance of the numbers in the management of the authority. Then you go to Section 29, Honorable Chair, that attempts to classify disasters as either national or county disasters. I do not see the wisdom behind classification of a disaster, because if you look at Section 29, subsection 4, it attempts to classify a county disaster as a disaster that only affects, if it affects a single county, then that is a county disaster. Honorable Speaker, I think this is totally unnecessary. You cannot tell me, for instance, a disaster that befell the people of Mai Mahiu, because it was confined to one county, is a disaster that should be relegated to a county disaster status. Or Solida, or in fact Hillside in Russia, or Toy Market, Westgate, or Garissa University. Those are disasters that require national attention. And I say this because if you go to then Section 30 of the proposed bill, it is only when it comes to a national disaster, something classified as a national disaster. It only in those instances can the president then declare a state of disaster in the country that then allows the release of resources, equipment, personnel, even essential goods to be able to help those people. Honorable Speaker, I think this is superfluous. There is no need for us to classify disasters. Let each disaster be judged on the basis, on a case-to-case basis, and all the resources of the country should be available to help our people, whether the disaster crosses boundaries of counties or not. Madam Speaker, the next one is on the qualifications of the people who are supposed to man the authority and even what they call the county disaster risk centers. Madam Speaker, we had a very hilarious exchange here in Nairobi with the county disaster management team. When you look at the qualifications of the people managing, say, fire in Nairobi, we had a very clear mismatch of skill and responsibility. You have people with degrees in theology. You hear is the one who's the head of fire response in Nairobi. We are not saying that people with degrees in theology are bad people. But Honorable Speaker, like the Senator for Kitui, I hear he's a bishop. But Honorable Speaker, We need people because our universities are churning out professionals in disaster management. So if you look at Section 10 of the proposed act, Honorable Chair, the chair of the board under Section 10, there is no requirement that that person be an expert in disaster management. They just require a degree in a bachelor's degree from a university recognized in Kenya. And you know that is going to be a problem if you followed the conversation that Senator Kajwang was bringing here on the quality of education and the professionals that we are putting out. Why can't we make it clear if it is disaster risk management, there are universities, there are students, there are qualified professionals in this particular field. Let them be the ones to do this. We cannot open this to everyone, including lawyers like myself, Honorable Speaker. And I know the Law Society of Kenya will come for me. But it's the truth. If you look at Section 20, subsection 1, on the qualifications for the Director General of the authority, in fact, on this one, they don't even ask for a degree. It just says he shall be competitively recruited. Honorable Chair, we're going to run into problems. If you go to Section 36, subsection 2 and 3, on the head of the County Disaster Risk Center, they just say he or she must be a person who holds a bachelor's degree from a university. I would prefer that we specify that these people must have training and knowledge in disaster management because these are courses that are offered by our universities. Then, Madam Speaker, I want to go to Section 49. Section 49, Madam Speaker, attempts to create an offense for making or circulating false alarms. Making or circulating false alarms. And I know that it might have been well intended. It might have been well intended, but this is a section that I believe is subject to abuse. Because, Honorable Speaker, we must measure between the constitutional right to free speech and trying to fetter on that particular right by introducing very dangerous provisions such as this. You might find yourself, you might not be the originator of a message on WhatsApp, for instance, that there has been a fire in Mradi. In fact, the way we knew about the fire in Mradi, most of us saw the information on social media, on WhatsApp, on our social media platforms, including Twitter and Facebook. So you can imagine you creating an offense that if somebody posted something saying there has been a fire in Mradi, and then it turns out, in fact, the section talks about if it is not in the magnitude that you have said it is, that is now going to be an offense. I believe this is a dangerous trend, and especially in this regime that looks for excuses to arrest people, this regime that looks for excuses to abduct people. This one is a very dangerous tool in the hands of Kenya Kwanza. Honorable Chair, finally, I want to go to Section 53. Section 53, subsection 1, provides that the people who are working currently at the National Disaster Operations Center and the National Disaster Management Unit will be seconded to the authority for 3 years. I don't understand, and I would like somebody to explain to me why the period of 3 years, because these are people who are already working there, and that if you don't wish to join the authority for those 3 years, you can go back to your parent authority or parent institution or apply afresh to the authority for you to be employed as a worker there. That is another dangerous tool, especially in the hands of a government that we do not trust, in the hands of a government that has shown that if you are not a shareholder and you apply for a job and your name is Wafula, I am telling you, you will be told you have no shares in this government and you will be thrown aside. So this is not a tool I would want in the hands of this Kenya Kwanza government or indeed any other government. Let it be clear that the people working in these two institutions will transition to the authority without any hindrance whatsoever, because they have been doing this job, they should just be absorbed. Honorable Chair, with those many remarks, I don't know if I say I support or I don't, because I have problems and I've seen also positive things, and I'm hoping when it comes to the third reading, I will be proposing those amendments to deal with those issues that I have raised. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Senator Murgor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I join my colleagues in airing my views, and I support the bill even though I have suggestions to make, knowing that disaster management or disasters are sometimes weather-based, and therefore they may occur in an occasion or part of a year, and yet in the next may not occur. And because of that, it is different from one area to another. Some areas, as dry as West Pokot and many other places, it is very difficult to manage disaster when it happens, when it is based on water or rain. When floods take place, it is very difficult because sometimes it gets a bare ground that doesn't have trees to keep the water from catching momentum or speed, and then there is no grass on the banks of the river, and therefore a river breaks a bank and goes into homes and so on. And therefore, it is very unpredictable to know what's going to happen in this season of rain or season of drought. And then it is also regional, and therefore there needs to be a study to know that this area, like Budalang, for example, that a colleague has mentioned, it is predictable and yet not predictable, but because of the history that a place such as that one has, it is it can be the technicality that there is can prepare to prevent and to prepare the people that occupy that area or live in that area, so that it is managed according to history that a place has. And then it is also, it requires a mechanism, and some of the mechanisms require education, and therefore, in my opinion, national government's responsibility or national level should prepare the policies nationally and then devolve to county levels who will actually be the ones that will implement them because they are ones that are with probably some of the areas that are affected by these conditions and situations according to history and also geographical settings from place to place. And then also the county should be prepared and should be given the capacity to be able to manage because they are the ones that are living with the people that are affected. Remember in West Pokot there was a landslide that affected many areas, many divisions, more than 2 divisions, and washed out homes, washed out people, and killed a lot of people. And so it was the county government that first responded before everybody else did, and therefore putting the county government in a position that should be empowered to be able to respond to such disasters when they happen. Even though there are challenges that come along with that, and one of those challenges is the speed at which government responds, either nationally or local, county level, because sometimes the faster the action is taken, the better, and the sooner it will help the people that are affected. But sometimes the feeling and the slowness and the slow pace at which we take will leave people being devastated and also very vulnerable because we have taken long to respond. And then some of the shortcomings are, a lot of that happens when there is disaster, and to that it goes to the people who deserve it. And so disaster, sometimes we create another disaster by taking the contributions that are made for the disaster. And so while we think about managing a disaster, we should learn also how to be transparent so that we manage corruption, because a lot of exchanging of hands that are not needed at that time really happen and take place, such that whatever is meant to reach a certain group of people does not reach there because of people taking advantage. And then some of the disasters happen because we have created the situation ourselves. Cutting off trees, falling trees for the purpose of burning charcoal has also brought about a lot of some of the disasters that take place. And then cutting trees along the rivers have really devastated some of the situations because when it rains, a lot of rivers flood and break banks, and without trees along the banks, it just goes out way into shambas and homes, and you can imagine, having a flooded river and a bank broken and goes into homes, especially at night. The nightmare that will take place is just terrible to feel, your floor and your bed being wet because the whole area is flooded. You don't even know where to run to, because even if you get out of the house, you could be running into a deeper problem if you do not know, do not see. And so some of the effectiveness is sometimes credited to churches and NGOs and so on.
Honorable Senators, it's now 6:30 p.m., time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate, therefore, stands adjourned until tomorrow, 19 September, until tomorrow, Thursday, 19 September 2024 at 2:30 p.m. Senator Murgor, you have a balance of 11 minutes when this debate resumes.